We're going to get started in just a few minutes here. I'm just getting everything set up still. Okay. We're doing the Channel 5 interview with Hunter Biden, Nick Fuentes. We're going to stream it and react to it. And again, just give us, I don't know, like 2 minutes or so, just to make sure everything's working properly before we start. Probably just another minute. Trying to make sure the vertical stream is working, but I'm not sure if it is. Sometimes it takes a minute for the lives to show up once I go live. There's like a minute delay. Okay. I'm not seeing the vertical stream in the feed, but I am seeing it on my channel, so we will get started here. Welcome to the Pipeline Podcast live stream. Tonight we have a very exciting stream that we're going to go over. So it's the Channel 5 interview with Nick Fuentes featuring Hunter Biden. So I watched a little bit of this interview last night just to make sure like it's appropriate for the channel. Some of the stuff that some of the content Nick Fuentes creates is not always acceptable on certain platforms, so you have to be a little bit careful there. But it's going to be pretty good. It seemed kind of like a round table. Mostly, it's just a debate between Hunter Biden and Nick Fuentes, and then the Channel 5 guy, Andrew Callahan. You know, he jumps in there sometimes. If you're not familiar with Channel 5, he's like a very popular YouTuber, right? And he covers a lot of current events, but he is more of like a leftist, so put kind of a leftist spin on it. So he's not the exact opposite to Nick Fuentes, but Nick Fuentes is on the right. He's like a content creator that's very conservative. Andrew Callahan, the Channel 5 people, are a little bit more left leaning, although they do try to keep it in the middle. I mean, that's why they're doing this interview in the first place. But what we're going to do tonight is we're going to point out, I'm not exactly sure what you call it, but kind of like every single moment that they try to um like make Nick Fuentes look bad, I guess. I don't know how to explain it, but there again, I watched a little bit of this interview, not the whole thing, last night, and there were times where Nick Fuentes was like rubbing his palms and they like zoomed in on it to like, I don't know, try to make a hit. on him, make it more of a hit piece on Nick Fuentes. I don't actually know what they were doing. And maybe we'll talk about it later in the stream. This is unrelated to what we're going to react to. But there is other drama with Andrew Callahan. Apparently he got kicked out of Joe Rogan's comedy club. There's some stuff there basically. I'm not saying he's a snake. I don't know too much about him in Channel 5, but people on the right, conservative people claim that he is a little snaky with the way he portrays his content. So we're going to make a point to point out every instance we see tonight of him doing that with Nick Fuentes. And again, this interview, it was recorded a while ago. It took a couple weeks, maybe a week or two to drop, and it's finally live so everyone can watch it now. What we're going to do tonight is we're going to watch this interview and we're going to react to it, and we're going to give our own hot takes. A little bit of a spoiler. I in my opinion, Nick Fuentes kind of holds back in this interview. I mean, he is on more of a left-leaning channel, and he wants this interview to be allowed on YouTube. So I understand why he holds back. So we're gonna try to fill in some of the gaps. There's some arguments I don't know if he does it intentionally or not, but there's some arguments he doesn't make. We'll try to make them when applicable. Again, it is YouTube, so it's not going to be like one of his Rumble streams or anything like that. But again, we're going to try to fill in the gaps. Very interesting interview. I don't know if anyone's a fan of Hunter Biden or not, but he has some good takes. He also has some very, very bad takes. And so if you see here at the bottom of our screen, we're actually keeping track. We have a win-loss counter for each of the people in the interview. And without further ado, let us begin. I feel like I've talked enough. Let's get started.
You said you want to ask me, why are you a Nazi?
Inclusion has been our greatest strength. Diversity has been our greatest strength.
White people do feel like we are being boxed out.
A 26-year-old white kid doesn't feel like he has access because he's been canceled, and the problem is black people.
I didn't say the problem's black people.
Well, you just did, Nick. You just
said the problem is crime, and we know who's doing the crime in Chicago.
Do you get what I'm saying?
Yes,
about the Holocaust things.
About that.
We get to say whatever we want on the internet. We get to deny the Holocaust.
As far as Jews are concerned in general, I think that everybody in the country should be treated with dignity and respect and have their civil rights.
What do you think about somebody like Mamdani?
Personally, I don't
like,
for example, on 4th of July, when he
there were protests outside Mamdani's mansion today.
takes the opportunity to sit there with, let's be honest, not a single white person.
What about fucking Donald Trump? There's no ideological core to Donald Trump.
No, I agree with you.
Don Jr. got the largest loan ever given by the Department of Defense.
Vance owes his entire political career to Peter Thiel. Whichever firm is the one to develop ASI, that could confer dictatorial-like powers upon the CEO of that company.
Everything that we think about the way in which we exist in the world completely changes.
Increasingly with Uber, Airbnb, banking apps, you can't live your life without the tech platforms.
So yeah, this is just the intro. I'm not gonna stop and pause throughout the intro. We're gonna get through it. The only reason I'm stopping now is so YouTube filters don't think I'm just reposting the Channel 5 interview and take down the stream. We're gonna make sure to take a lot of pauses throughout the stream. We kind of have to, we're forced to, even if there's nothing important to say.
Everything that AI is built on is ours. That's what they're stealing from us. I want to find common ground of how much of a shithead Donald Trump is. We can get there, okay?
The kind of first question that I had whenever I caught wind that you wanted to do an interview like this is, why now? What made you want to sit down for this kind of interview?
Well, I think it's an interesting conversation to have all of us here. And, I think it's a moment in our country when there's a lot of realignment. I think that people recognize, especially in the past couple of years, I'm like a non-conventional critic, maybe, of what's happening. And so I think it'll be an interesting, productive conversation. I think it'll be different.
But I mean,
I don't know, productive might be a stretch. It might not be productive.
Specifically because we kind of share a publicist. I heard that you wanted to kind of... Okay.
Wait, okay, we need to go back. I actually missed that.
Because we kind of share a publicist. I heard that you wanted to kind of...
Andrew's publicist. I am not Nick's publicist.
Okay. we have a publicist that you hit up, and you said that you wanted to talk to someone who would give you kind of a fair shot to clear up some things and maybe some misconceptions about you and the things you believe.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, and he wanted to talk to someone, that's the Channel 5 guy, and it needed to be someone specifically that has a YouTube channel. I think he wants to get his content on YouTube a little bit more. He can't host one of his streams on YouTube, but what he can do is he can go on Channel 5 and do an interview, and that, as long as he doesn't say anything too crazy, it should be allowed on YouTube.
Yeah, I think that, you know, I'm somebody who I think, like you, actually, maybe we have this in common, is kind of pigeonholed in a certain way for things.
And I don't like how Nick Fuentes compares himself to a criminal like Hunter Biden. Like I don't think that's a good comparison. He shouldn't be giving him that.
We've done in the past or things that we've said.
Yeah, I'm a crackhead.
Exactly.
But I'm
He's a
racist.
crackhead, and if you ever seen his laptop, he's up there with the Epstein class, like straight up. It's undeniable.
Right?
I got pigeonholed there. Mine is true. Yeah.
Yeah, well, mine's a little true. Maybe a little, no.
And we are going to be a little harsh with the win losses tonight, and just for Nick to even give him that so easily, we have to mark it as a loss for Nick Fuentes. But I do understand why he did that. He's trying to be friendly.
But yeah, so I think it'd be good to clear up some of the misrepresentations and put out something accurate.
So what do you
Sure,
think is
yeah.
the most misrepresented thing about you?
Well, I think really the whole image everybody has about me. You know, when you mentioned me, I think on a recent show, you said you want to ask me, why are you a Nazi?
Yeah.
And that's how everybody knows me. Everybody thinks of me as a white supremacist Nazi, and I don't think that's really true at all. I think that we definitely have different values. I mean, you're more from the left, I'm more from the
So yeah, if you're unfamiliar with what he's saying there, this is the kind of shit that mainstream media posts about Nick Fuentes. You have the New York Times, Nick Fuentes, a white nationalist problem for the right. It's stuff like that he's talking about.
right, but I don't think I'm a hater. I'm not a hateful person.
It is Heil Hitler Friday.
And so here we do have to point out, you know, Nick Fuentes is like, I'm not a hater. Andrew Callahan, like the Channel 5 dude, is straight up just posts like a video of what he says is like Nick Fuentes being hateful. But a lot of people would say, you know, this is just like streamer content.
Heil Hitler, all my niggas Nazis.
Morgan
He's
was
singing
was
a
very
Kanye.
fucking cool.
He's singing a Kanye West song.
Yes, I do.
One of the
And I'm not going to get into this with our hot takes, but we actually covered this Piers Morgan Nick Fuentes interview on the channel. So if you do want to watch that, go ahead and check it out. It was really, really good.
And I'm tired of pretending he's not.
So what's the thing about, I guess, traditional Nazism that you think you disagree with the most?
Well, it's a non-Christian ideology. So, I mean, look, I believe that race is real, as the Nazis did, but I don't think it utterly defines a person. As a Christian, I think we're all created beings. I do believe there's such a thing as a universal human community. And so I think it's a cruel ideology. I've said this on my show, by the way, but I mean, that would maybe be the fundamental.
Did you always feel that way?
Always, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So even whenever you were younger and stuff?
I did, but you know, you got to recognize times have changed. 10 years ago, we had a totally different political world. The regulation and policing of speech, you know, what you would call wokeness, I think was at an all-time high when I got started as a very young man.
What would you would call wokeness?
I like that.
Yeah,
That's
exactly.
funny.
Well, and I think, I mean, would you not
maybe
say there
him,
were
maybe
some
him, yeah.
excesses maybe in those days?
Yeah, in those days, I wasn't doing too well, so I wasn't paying much attention. Anyway, I would love to hear, and I'm not asking you to like retract everything that you've ever
I don't like Hunter Biden. Like, obviously, he's not a good person, but he cracks me up.
said and all, you know, or anything. But I said that I would love to talk to you because, number one,
It's because they're both ostracized from like their political family. So like Hunter Biden is like the black sheep of the Democrats, you know. It's like the former president's son that's a crack addict, and I don't believe he is in the Epstein files, but he's Epstein class equivalent. And then you have Nick Fuentes, the Nazi, you know. He's like the black horse. I'm like the Republican side, a black horse.
told you this, is that I think you're really smart. And I think that with that comes in a real responsibility. And you have an audience. And I have a friend whose son is my daughter's age, you know, maybe 28, you know, your age. And he's really smart. And he is a big fan of yours. And so by virtue of why he is a fan,
Sorry about that.
I got to learn what it is that why he is a fan of yours. And none of it has to do with, I would hope you agree, like really egregious things that you've said in the past about the Holocaust or about,
Did the Jews ever talk about the 100 million?
Yeah, there's some stupid poll somewhere, and it's like, it's talking to like fans of Nick Fuentes, and it's like, what's your your biggest issue that you care about? And it was the economy. It wasn't like, being a Nazi or some racist issue. It was literally the economy.
Whites that died in World War II? Or do they just bitch and moan about the so-called 6 million Jews that died?
And so it's just nice to poke holes in it and say, it's not 6 million.
6 million? I don't think so.
and I don't even know, I think I've heard you since kind of rescind a lot of that.
You concede that 6 million Jews died in the Holocaust.
Possibly more. Possibly, we're discovering all the time. So it could be maybe.
So yeah, they're showing clips of him saying less Jews died in the Holocaust than is like the official narrative, and then they're showing clips of him saying maybe even more. So it's like, all right,
even be more than that.
But what he agrees with is kind of the anger about the situation that particularly your generation finds yourself in. I know that to be real. And I think that there, maybe my reasons for recognizing that anger as being legitimate and my targets are different than yours. I just wanted to hear from you.
Yeah.
When you say
they have different, he's kind of saying, Hunter Biden's kind of saying like they have different interests, like the things that they care about. They are in like opposite sides of the political spectrum. So like the things that matter most to them, like are not going to be the same things.
You were canceled by the right in 2016.
Yes.
I almost felt like in preparing to meet you now, is that your reaction to that was to just dig deeper and deeper into kind of the outsider, kind of radical, say anything for the purpose of generating, the attention to build an audience. Is that true? And it's not an accusation. I really mean it. I want this to be a conversation as much as possible.
I mean, there's certainly some truth to that, but I think that might be overstating it a little bit, because
Okay.
I really got canceled by the right and the left.
Yeah.
And back in those days in 2017, you had these far-left journalists at Huffington Post, Right Wing Watch, ADL, SPLC, and I really...
Yeah, ADL and SPLC are all like, it's like come out now. I think it was the SPLC we covered on the channel was literally funding hate groups. Like they were paying informants to go undercover to like gather information on the hate groups. And it's like the ADL is supposed to fight against hate groups. Why are they propping them up?
believe they were on a mission to find extremist rhetoric, the white nationalist, neo-Nazi boogeyman, all that kind of stuff. And they would look at someone like myself, 18, and if I was being serious or joking, things taken out of context, they would clip it, post it, and they wanted me to be the villain. And I think they wanted a lot of people.
Yeah, I mean, that never went away. I mean, he still gets those hit pieces written like every couple months about him by like very, very mainstream publications.
To be the villain. And I think the left, in a way, kind of created this climate where I think they pushed a lot of people farther to the right.
No, by the way, that very well may be true.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
You gave him a lot of ammunition.
That's true.
You know, I mean, I hope that some of those things that you said in the past are not things that you believed in and that are
This is one thing that some people don't understand is there's a difference between like your actual political beliefs and then the shit you say when you're doing a stream online at 3 a.m. like Nick Fuentes commonly does. Like there is a little bit of a difference there. Sometimes he's just having fun.
Meant just to engender like a really radical kind of response. I mean, is that true or not?
Well, you know, again, I think that back in those days, you could not say anything. In 2017, 2018, cancel culture was so in overdrive. Any joke, any edgelording, anything like that, they would, first of all, there's no sense of humor.
I'm so old. I don't even.
Okay, well, to break it down for you, so the dawn of wokeness, as it's known today, I think was in like the post-Trump era. After Trump won the election in 2016, there was a big movement to deplatform and kind of push away those who, I guess, the left feel like had galvanized them into the presidency. So there was this big idea that if you push people off mainstream social media platforms, they would go away. Now we know through Trump's reelection that's not even true. But at the time,
That's true. He's right about that. But the one thing he doesn't mention is that like suppression or whatever is still very, very common, like on social media. Like people get banned all the time for just like talking about certain things. Like even talking about like the Charlie Kirk assassination, like stuff like that.
Time, that was the mantra. Problematic viewpoints needed to be silenced, tucked away somewhere, and they would just sort of die in isolation. So I think that was the climate where you first got started, 2017. That time period was like crucial for getting people off mainstream platforms. Is that correct?
Absolutely.
Yeah, and I would say that you got to get into the psychology of those days. It felt like anybody that wasn't on board with the most progressive agenda had no options. There was just no alternative. It was going to be progressive, liberal, feminist, BLM, all that kind of stuff. And if you were to the right of John McCain, you're no platformed. Censored, banned from all the platforms, you're fired from your job, you're ostracized socially. And I think...
And that didn't just happen in 2017. That still happens today. And it happens on both sides. I will say it mostly happens on the left. It's like the left trying to like debank people, deplatform people, but the right does it too. Both sides do it.
What happened really in 2021 when Trump got banned from the platforms is it felt like...
Oh yeah, let's go back to that real quick.
And really in 2020.
So when Trump, this is a fun fact, when Trump got banned from Twitter, Bernie Sanders actually went out in an interview and said, no, like a former president should not be banned from social media. Like that doesn't help anything. That's only going to create more problems. Which I think it's another thing a lot of people don't realize.
When Trump got banned from the platforms is it felt like 70 million people got canceled. 70 million people that voted for Trump, or 60, 70 million people, we were all felt like, oh, so if Trump is out of politics and we're all banned from the platforms, then how is there any redress for our grievances? Do we just have to shut up and get with the program and we're all going to be progressive? And I think that drove people to a far more radical place where people said, well, what really is a solution? We can't talk. We can't express ourselves. We can't participate in the process or run for office. And I was one of the people saying that's exactly what's going to happen. It's going to drive people to extremism.
Yeah, a lot of people were saying that.
If you don't talk, if people don't feel like they have a seat at the table and enfranchisement, I think then they start exploring options outside the system, outside of the political.
Yeah, and I do want to say, like, that's one thing that's really cool about this interview. So you have Channel 5, more of a left-leaning media source, interviewing Nick Fuentes, who's like the right-wing boy, the Nazi boy. So, it's 2026. It's obviously not 2017 in the middle of like cancel culture. Things are a little different now. But I think it's great, to be honest.
Process, the democratic process. So I think it's self-inflicted in many ways.
So you feel like after the mass deplatforming in 2021, whenever people on the right got pushed to platforms like Parler, Gab, Rumble, etc., the lack of discourse and like the political...
Yeah, now it's like the super fringe people, I guess, or I don't know, the super MAGA people that got mad when they got banned in 2017 are on, it's Rumble and Truth Social, I believe. And then it's pretty acceptable for that kind of person to be on X.com.
Singularity of those platforms created more extremism.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Because look, you take Trump off of Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and I predicted this in 21. I said, watch, you're going to see alternative social media rise because some venture capitalists is going to see there's a huge market of 70 million people that are going to follow Trump.
Yeah, the market of the popular vote.
Because Trump is no platformed. And that's exactly what happened. Rumble blew up, Elon bought Twitter, and what happened when you had total free speech on these platforms?
And you still, I don't know about Rumble, but you still don't have total free speech on X.com, but you might on Rumble. I am not very familiar with Rumble.
Well, Twitter now resembles 4chan. And now, there's no gatekeepers. And I think it did push people in a radical direction. And honestly, people are even blowing past me. Now there's like mainstream normie types that are even blowing past me in terms of how radical they are. People start saying things like, there's no political solution. There's going to be a civil war. We need a revolution.
Yeah, that's the kind of stuff that you see a lot on like X, which is like not good rhetoric. That stuff is not good for anyone.
And I think that's because the message from the left was you're crushed. You have no options. You can't win. There's no alternative.
Yeah.
Trump is going to be indicted.
We're going to give Nick a point for that, actually, because I 100% agree with that.
in charge and can't run. You can't be on Twitter. You can't
me
have
see
a
my one
job.
loss.
And so
Where'd it
people
go?
started to say, okay, well,
back.
you know, we still exist. We're still here. We still have these concerns. What do we do now? And then people start to say, well, we need a revolution. And I'm one of the only people saying, no, we should still engage in the process and
There we
talk
go.
with
Sorry
each
about
other.
that.
And it's not all one-sided. I think there's problems on the left and the right, but I certainly think it takes two to tango.
Okay, so there, we agree. I think that there are problems on the left and the right, and I don't disagree with some of the things that you just said. I guess I just came to
The softest take I've ever heard from Hunter Biden. There are problems on the right and the left. Yeah, no shit.
a different conclusion, that there are some things that people should be deplatformed for, not that they can't say.
Yeah, it's whatever. Like, there are words that are like not legal. Like, there are words that you're not allowed to say. Like if you're threatening violence or something, that's the kind of stuff that should be deplatformed.
It where they want to say it, but I think that it's a right of anybody.
Okay, top 3 things. What do you think?
There's a
Top
difference between being able to say that you're proud of your white heritage and also being just a flat out racist. I think that there's a difference.
Yeah, but a racist should still be allowed to be racist, like legally. I'm not defending racism. All I'm saying is that's free speech.
It's between saying you're proud of your Christian heritage and the white culture from what you come from, and not
Yeah, that's
or
facts.
that
I do
you
have a
adopt
soft
the
voice.
Nazism as a legitimate ideology. I think that there's a difference
Might do some
between
voice training,
saying that
be like
you
Matan.
disagree with the United States policy as it relates to Israel and saying that the Holocaust didn't exist.
I was like, Mom, Dad, Hitler
Yeah, but that's
was
funny, though.
awesome. Hitler was right. And the Holocaust didn't happen. And my
Yeah, so what they're talking about is like a lot of people watch Nick Fuentes' stream where he says this kind of stuff. Then they go on Twitter and, you know, they're kind of dumbasses because like Nick is actually a pretty smart guy. And they don't really know what they're talking about. A good example of that is it was a Piers Morgan interview with it's like a MMA fighter who does a podcast, and basically he was trying to like deny the Holocaust but didn't know any of the real arguments on like how to do it. I mean, he just kind of embarrassed himself.
parents were like,
And what they're saying is that kind of rhetoric can be dangerous. And I agree it can be dangerous, but it's not illegal or anything. You shouldn't ban those people from social media.
we cannot believe.
Those would be top 3 things in my mind. I know that you believe that some people took you out of context, and I do agree. Look, on both the right and the left, there are these gatekeepers, 100%. And look at me.
Yeah, I would say the gatekeepers. I mean, if they're still talking social media, are like, I don't know, there's like a lot of paid influencers on both sides that just kind of like are given talking points and just have to talk about it.
Mainstream press just destroyed me for 7 years without any.
The mainstream press went easy on him. They suppressed his laptop and even called his laptop like fake news until after the election. So I mean, in my opinion, he got off easy.
Real kind of reflection about what they were doing. I do think
it's not looking
that,
good
you know,
there.
some of those things are legitimate reasons to say, you know, we don't.
Yeah, I agree. Denying the Holocaust is dangerous and brain dead, but it's not illegal.
Want you on our, you know, on our commercial platform. Would you agree with that? I mean, you just said, for instance, people calling for a, like an armed revolution, like people calling for actual violence. You're opposed to.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Right.
I'm against violence,
Yeah.
and I do think those are one of the legitimate things that should be taken from the platform. You know, there's a lot of the stuff on social media I don't agree with, but again, you know, what started to happen is there was this like editorial censorship where certain ideas were banned, and they just, it was such a broad brush. And also totally opaque and ad hoc. You'd be on YouTube, like I was, for example.
It's still
they
like that
banned
today.
me for life and didn't even give me a reason, not a specific
Right, and that's why he's doing the Channel 5 interview, because he's banned from YouTube.
a quote, not a specific infraction. And so you don't know what the rules are. You don't know what the process is. They just take you down. And especially now when everything is digital, that's not just the social platforms, it's the other ones like Uber, Airbnb, whatever. It feels like you're being denied almost something like a civil right. The social platforms are the modern public square. Increasingly with Uber, Airbnb.
Yeah, that's a hot take I've heard. People have said like eventually the government's gonna have to like treat social media like a utility. Like I don't know. It's pretty good. It's a kind of a fun rabbit hole to go down.
the banking apps, you can't live your life without the tech platforms. And it felt like if you just simply had the wrong opinions or you were the wrong kind of person, you were being deprived of like a basic civil right or being able to participate in society. So, you know, and I think
I don't think it's a loss, but I do disagree with what he's saying. Like, social media isn't a right.
maybe that's an area of collaboration where we recognize maybe it is a civil right to use the digital platforms, but here are the rules. Here's what
Right.
you can.
And if they did that, they would have to treat social media like a utility company. It would have to be, if it's going to be controlled that much by the government, like it would have to be like owned or like regulated like really heavily.
And say, here's what you can't
You couldn't just tell like Facebook, like their own, a company, like this is what you can allow and can't allow.
say, here's the process. Maybe there's a reconciliation mechanism, but I mean, the censorship was just out of control. I don't think anyone disagrees there's a reasonable
Yeah,
limit,
it's a lot
though.
better
Yeah,
now.
no, I guess what I'm saying is that I don't see that as a result of left-wing or right-wing ideology. I view that kind of level of deplatforming. Look, I was debanked. I was debanked before I was ever even charged
Yeah, but he's like actually like a pedo criminal, so it makes sense that he got debanked.
with anything. I lost every bank account. It took me, 9 months once they, the Trump administration, said that they were starting an investigation into me to be able to actually get a bank account again. And I don't want to tell you the bank because tomorrow they may debank me again. But my point is that those people are incredibly identifiable.
Yeah, I don't like the comparison by like Hunter Biden got debanked and so did Nick Fuentes. Like they're just the same. And it's like, no, Nick Fuentes got debanked for just like shit that he said. Hunter Biden got debanked for like the shit on his laptop.
I keep, like, I've been talking and going around and I say things like, I don't think we are nearly as divided as they're telling us we are. Because I do believe that there.
Yeah, and I saw a clip of that and I kind of laughed when I saw that because it is true. I mean, you got three straight white men, as far as I know, three straight white men saying we're not really that divided. And that's kind of a good point.
Are an identifiable group of people that are responsible for an enormous amount of the discord and division because they make money off of it. I think that these social media companies that are controlled by 3, 4, 5, individuals have made it clear that they only care about one thing. They only care about how much money they can produce for themselves and, the people that hold stocks in their company. Even to the degree
Well, yeah, that's
where
how companies work.
we know for certain that they're driving teenage girls to the highest levels of suicide by a factor, like exponential factors.
That's one of those things, though. It's like, what do you do? You're not going to let teenage girls use social media? Like, is that really a good solution? There's got to be something better than that.
Directly related to the content that they're being pushed, and they won't do anything about it.
Right.
And so, to the
But they're
same
not going to do anything until the government tells them they need to do something about it.
degree, I think they, a lot of what you call wokeness was maybe an illegitimate, but a financial decision based
Yeah, that's right. Nick Fuentes might be gay. Not sure.
on a lot of these
Corporate psyop, maybe.
corporate side.
Thank you.
I mean, by the way, exactly.
I just wanted to back up real quick. So you talked about certain people going too far. About 2.5 months ago, I visited a whites-only community in Hardy, Arkansas. And I don't know why, I guess coming from like a more like left-wing place, I'm from Seattle, I kind of assumed there was like a united front on the right for some reason. So I'm out there, I'm chilling with these dudes. They're like sword fighting, having barbecues. Overall, it was a good time for them. I had a hard time connecting with them because I don't agree with them, but it's all good. I was having fun for a couple days. And then like right as I was there, I guess you had hit them up on X or something and said like, hey, I don't want to associate with you guys. What happened there?
Well, that was really more of a personal disagreement with the guy that
I'm
founded
not familiar
it.
with this. I don't know about
But
this.
I do think it's an interesting project, and it's interesting that got so much pushback, this whites-only community, because you know what? If you go to a lot of these different neighborhoods in major cities, there are ethnic enclaves. And
Yeah, that's very true. There's like Little Italy or like I don't know, what are the other ones? Like Chinatown. Like a lot of major cities have those areas.
And it's not like there's an explicit rule that you have to be a certain ethnicity, but we all know in Chicago and New York and LA, you got certain neighborhoods where it is 80, 90% one ethnicity.
Yeah.
And I think there's a lot of white people that say we kind of want something similar. I don't think there's anything.
Nick, what is this
Well, okay, let's back up. If you want to talk
What's
about
funny?
the histories of, New
Yeah,
York and Chicago. I
what's
feel
funny? Did you hear that? Nick's like, what's funny? I'm not joking.
Like that was also a conscious decision that was made like
I
after
tell
the
you
Civil
where
Rights
it's
Act.
blacks only. It's in Cabrini Green.
So again, we're on YouTube, so we're gonna stay out of this topic. But what I will say is go on Zillow, go look up like homes in different neighborhoods. Find a home that has like low crime, good education. You'll notice all those homes are gonna have a low diversity score. And so that's kind of all I'm gonna say for YouTube purposes.
Daly made everybody that was black live in the Cabrini Green. I mean, it's not, that wasn't by choice. It's not by choice that these ethnic enclaves are 80 or 90%, whatever that ethnicity is. It's because that's the only place in which they had an opportunity to live unbothered, or where they were told that they had to live because of the historical fact that they could not move into other neighborhoods. You could not move into parts of South Chicago without, being stoned.
Right.
Literally, right?
Yeah,
and so, like that, so it's not.
No, he's not talking about segregation at all. He's just saying, like, if a community of white people want to go live by themselves, like, they should just be able to do that. And he's saying it doesn't matter what the race is or whatever.
As if those ethnic enclaves are there by
He's
choice,
not saying like only white people can
also
live in,
ethnic
like,
enclaves do exist for like
neighborhood.
specific variations of different Europeans. Like there is like places that are chocolate. Like South Philly's full of Italians.
There's Little Italy and there's Little Korea.
So I think the issue.
Yeah, that's what he's talking about.
I always like that. What confused me the most about the whites only community is like there's just so many different kinds of white people in America. So like to establish a unified white culture with a place so diverse and full of like different regional flavors just kind of felt confusing to me because that could mean a different thing depending on what part of the country or what European enclave you originated from. Like we're Irish people from the Philly area. Can you compare that to like surfers in San Diego or even like Italian Americans in Staten Island? I don't know. Everything just feels so different. So when I got there, I was trying to identify what they meant by white culture. It wasn't really based on shared like cultural practices, but more the exclusion of people who weren't white. So they weren't like stoked on being European necessarily. They were more just like, oh, we're here because those people aren't here. So it just kind of felt more negative than constructive.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I'm not really involved with that project in particular, but I think that, look, I mean, you talk about the anger that's out there and the frustration, and I think part of the frustration, let's be honest, is that white people do feel like we are being boxed out in major cities in the country, and it feels like, look, there's a little Haiti, and there's various ethnic enclaves where you get that local culture and they do their, cultural festivals and that sort of thing. And white people feel like they're being pushed out and they want a space where things are familiar.
Do you feel the same way about the Italian festival that happens in every city?
Well, here's a good example.
Or St. Patrick's Day?
Well, there's no Irish neighborhood in Chicago. Little
Sure
Italy.
There is.
I mean, there's some remnant in Bridgeport.
There's no like Little Ireland is what he's saying.
Yeah.
It's important to note that like, and I'm not trying to get into like a shouting match here, but like, as a family who did coming from a family who did leave Philadelphia in the 60s because of black migration from the South after the Civil Rights Act was passed, there was a sort of like mass flight of white people into the suburbs, and that kind of led to a homogenization of different cultures because they rushed so fast to build these like identical strip mall suburbs that it was very hard to maintain cultural bonds that made different European and white neighborhoods unique around like the 1950s and before. So I feel like the mass suburbanization is also a big factor that led to those like cultural bonds breaking.
Yeah, but why did that happen? I mean, a lot of the suburbanization is because of the race riots in the 1960s. People moved out because of the violence. My grandfather was in the National Guard in Chicago when, after MLK got assassinated, the whole West Side burned to the ground. And people didn't want to be around that anymore.
Why were the riots?
Yeah, we saw that
MLK
with the
Jr. was
BLM
assassinated.
riots a couple years ago as well.
And so does that justify burning down the city?
No, I didn't say it justifies it, but it sure justifies an enormous amount of the anger. The same kind of anger
We gotta go back about 10 seconds.
Yeah.
And so does that justify the whole West Side burned to the ground? And people didn't want to be around that anymore.
Why were the riots?
MLK Jr. was assassinated.
Yeah.
And
is Hunter Biden defending burning down a city because someone died? That is going to be an L, unless I'm misunderstanding what he's trying to say. I'm sure I am.
So does that justify burning down the city?
No, I didn't say it justifies it, but it sure justifies an enormous amount of the anger. The same kind of anger that you feel about being left out. The same kind of anger that you're expressing right now about the idea that you're culturally irrelevant, that you don't have a place in society. Imagine if you were...
That is one thing I don't agree with. Nick Fuentes says white people feel like they're pushed out, like maybe a little bit in some instances, but I don't think that's like the general vibe of white people.
a
in the
26-year-old
US.
black man in 1968 and saw your hero be assassinated and
Oh, I
nothing being
saw
done about
Trump get shot in the ear, and
it. Did he?
I saw Charlie Kirk get shot, and I didn't see any cities get burned down.
Exactly. That's it right there.
It's funny how
I
that
think
works.
it's a very, very, very different thing. I think
How
it's
is
an
that different?
absolutely
Charlie
different
Kirk
thing.
got shot in the neck.
Yeah.
And liberals celebrated
whom?
all over social media.
And a lot of these liberals still have jobs, fun fact. If this, the roles were reversed and it was 2017 and they were conservatives, they would be debanked, deplatformed, fired from their jobs, put on a no-fly list.
Tyler Robinson.
Yeah. Who is what?
Who is some liberal guy.
He is?
Mm-hmm.
But
He's got a transgender boyfriend.
And then I believe we have Hunter Biden arguing that Tyler Robinson, the guy who killed Charlie Kirk, is a conservative.
Friend.
Does that make him
that
liberal?
will be another
Because he's
L for
transgender?
him.
Because
I
he's
think so.
gay?
Well, because he's got a transgender boyfriend. Yeah, I think so.
It makes him liberal.
I think he was liberal. Yeah.
Okay. Well, he didn't come from a liberal family. He didn't come from
A lot of liberals don't come from liberal families, Hunter
a
Biden.
liberal enclave. He didn't come from a liberal background. He's not
That's
a
an
minority. He was a Mormon, correct?
Mhm.
And
Yeah,
grew up in a Mormon
that is true.
household.
He
and he went
was
to
a Mormon.
a largely Mormon college, and he ended up
Bro, you are
committing an
chatting
act
too
of
much. I
violence,
cannot read all of
according
those.
to the FBI and the authorities in Utah that charged him. How does that in any way compare to what we're talking about? I'm not justifying the violence that occurred after the death of Martin Luther King, but you're saying that that person, this Tyler, whoever his name is was as disenfranchised as the African American community in 1968
No.
in inner cities?
He's not
Well, the
saying
question
that.
is who we
I
want to
don't- I
live
don't think
around.
so.
I'm not living around blacks. Sorry. I want white kids, and I don't want my white kids bringing home black people to marry.
And in the 1960s, the West Side burns down. We don't want to live around that.
Oh, wait. We got to go back. I got to show you this. Check this out. Check out this cut from Channel 5.
People to marry.
And in the 1960s, the West Side burns down. We
So
don't
they like zoom. Oh, I missed it again. Damn it.
Bringing home black people to marry.
And in the 1960s, the West Side burns down.
They like zoom in on him, like rubbing his hands together, like, ooh, we got Nick Fuentes in a tight spot. Zoom in on his hands. I don't like how they do that. You can tell that Channel 5 does have an obvious bias here. I don't like that. And it's like, one person is like a pedo criminal, if you've ever checked out Hunter Biden's laptop. The other person just has like controversial content. And like they're trying to make it like a hit piece against him. They don't do this to Hunter Biden.
We don't want to live around that. We don't want to live around a
That's
city that's
not when
burning
that
down.
happened. That's not when the white flight happened.
It
That's
is.
not-
It was
is
a big
not.
response to it,
is not.
absolutely.
100% not.
There is a real statistic. It's like for every one, I'm not being racist, I don't know, but they said for every like one colored person that moved into the city, it was 1.5 white people that moved to the suburbs.
You
Absolutely.
make
Talking
these
about white
historical connections that don't exist. Part of it was potentially, but before that, what Mayor Daley did is made Chicago the most segregated city in the entire United States, other than Boston. When you would come from the South to
Interesting, yeah, that's
Chicago,
not good.
African Americans from the South, blacks in the South,
And Chicago is not a very safe city.
coming to Chicago would say that Chicago was twice the level of segregation and racism that occurred in the South. And so it wasn't as if you're coming into a situation in which you're feeling in any way enfranchised by the community and the situation that you're in. And as many people left simply because of the idea that someone was black moving into their neighborhood as the violence that occurred after the assassination of Martin Luther King. So the numbers actually...
Well, it wasn't specifically just after the assassination of MLK. Like even Nick Fuentes said that earlier, like it's the crime.
1968, when King was shot, you had more people leave the city because of the desegregation, because of the 1964 Civil Rights Act, than you did after the riots.
I think that's just not true. I think that the race riots were a huge driver
Yeah, I
of white
don't-
flight
I guess
to
I
the
don't
suburbs.
know.
I think it's just dishonest to say that's not the case.
Okay, so what's your point about all of this?
Well, we're
Okay,
talking
so
about
what's
where
your
people
point?
want to live.
Yeah, I know. So like, what in 2026?
Well,
what's the
okay,
point?
how about in 2020?
Yeah, you're talking about where people want to live. People like already kind of subconsciously like segregate themselves. Like the whole country isn't like a melting pot. There are a lot of like areas where, the black people live or the white people live or like any other kind of like race of people. They seem to concentrate together. And that's not anything new.
when Minneapolis
not
burned
like
to the ground, or how about
segregation.
in the summer of 2020 in Chicago?
Minneapolis didn't burn to the ground.
It didn't?
No, I mean there were
BLM
parts
didn't
of it.
destroy
Okay,
dozens of
yeah.
structures.
If you guys need a physical witness to what happened in Minneapolis, there were many structures that burned to the ground. Not the
Yes.
city, but there was, I would say, between
Not the whole city. It was just a small number of violent offenders. You can't blame the whole city, all right?
40 to 50 buildings off of Lake
It
Street
was only 40 to 50 buildings. Come on, the city, you can't say the city burned to the ground.
in the south side that did burn to the ground. But most of the city was intact, but it was quite
Most
an
of
intense
it was
situation.
fine.
People don't want to live around that. People don't want to live around that. You know, in Chicago, it rolled on into the summer, and it wasn't, you know, let's say, the anger of the oppressed and the disenfranchised.
So who's
They
at
were
fault?
looting. They were looting and
Who's they?
carjacking.
Yeah.
The criminals.
Yeah, it's not even just that people don't want to live around that. It's people can't even afford to open a business in that area. So you get people leaving, and you also get like businesses leaving as well.
Are you saying that the problem with the 26-year-old white kid living in suburbia outside of Chicago and his feeling of being disenfranchised is because there was looting and rioting in Minneapolis by black people, and it's black people that are doing it?
Yeah. I mean, the problem with
Are you
Austin
really?
Metcalf was that he got stabbed in the neck at a track meet. And the problem with our city in Chicago is that the magnificent
But we covered Austin Metcalf on the channel if you want to check it out. That was pretty good.
Mile is gone.
And
Water Tower Place is gone because of all the crime.
Nick, and the time from an entire generation of African Americans is that they've been getting killed by cops for.
Yeah, that is actually wrong. So there, I mean, people, you know, obviously they do get killed by cops, but we've seen all the body cam footage that's been coming out the last few years because liberals push for more transparency. And, you know, it's pretty undeniable that a lot of them do kind of act violent, and they end up getting shot because they try to kill, you know, a cop when they get arrested or something. And then also, way more black people are killed by other black people, like black on black crime, than cops are killing black people.
Decades.
That's
What are
just
you
not
talking
true.
about?
Hunter Biden
Nick,
gets an
Listen,
L there.
commit
That's
crime.
completely wrong.
Listen, it's not
Nick,
what?
that's not true. It's
Oh,
not true. Are
it
you saying
is.
that police brutality as it relates and racism in the police
Yeah, deaths from police brutality are actually very low. I mean, it does happen, of course, but it's not what you would think.
force in the way in which police treat African Americans? Nick, you could grow up here like I did between Wilmington and Philadelphia. And if you were a black dentist and you lived in Wilmington and you commuted to Philadelphia, the chances of you being pulled over by a state trooper, either Delaware or in Pennsylvania, are about 50 times that would be if it was a white guy.
Why is
50
that?
times. And
We're
so what
talking
you're
about-
trying to tell me.
You do have to understand though, like from the cops' perspective. Again, I'm not even trying to be racist, but it's like I bet more people that they arrest are black compared to like white people. And so for a black person to get pulled over, even if they're not doing anything wrong, is kind of expected.
Is that the problem in America right now is that a 26-year-old white kid who lives in suburban Chicago doesn't feel like he has access because he's been canceled or he's been woke, and the problem is black people.
I didn't say the problem's black people.
Well, you just did, Nick.
I do believe he said it was crime, actually.
I
I
said
could
the
be
problem
wrong.
is crime. And
Yeah,
we know
it
who's
was
doing the
crime.
crime in Chicago. The carjackings.
Right. And that's why someone that's of color, like someone that's colored, might actually get pulled over more often.
Shootings, teen takeovers. We know why there's no business on the Mag Mile anymore, and it's
Right.
because they steal cars, they drive them through windows. And listen, black people are some of the biggest victims of the black crime.
They are the biggest victim.
But we're not allowed to talk about it because of the
What do you
racial
mean you're not
dimension.
allowed to talk about it? We're talking about it right here. You
guys,
have a platform in which
I think
millions
we're-
of people listen to
I
you,
think-
Nick.
I think-
Millions.
Well,
What?
after Elon had to buy Twitter and open it up. It wasn't like that before. I was banned from everything for many years. So no, you weren't allowed to.
And he still can't get verified on Twitter. Like that blue check mark or whatever. He's still like, he is allowed on X or Twitter, but he's still, he's not treated like a normal user.
You're right. We could talk about
For
it
better
now,
or worse.
but that's only because the good guys
Nick.
won.
Hey, what's up, guys? There's something I forgot to tell you about. We also just launched
All right. For respect for Channel 5 doing this interview, we'll watch the ad reel, but I'm going to take a break. I'll be back in a minute.
our own streaming platform called C5.now. We have 5 films on there right now. Film number 1, The Art of Protest, made by the homies over at Indecline, who we interviewed a few months back. Film 2, Rat Film by Theo Anthony, set in Baltimore, investigates the lives and times of the rodent population through the eyes of the people who love the rats of Baltimore, study the rats of Baltimore, or are paid to execute and trap the rodents of Charm City. Documentary number 3, Star Cash by Haley Garrigus, an amazing Wall Street documentary that follows the lives of market predictors, that's right, stock analysts who stare at the planets to figure out what's going to happen with the money. Documentary number 4, it's called Physician Heal Thyself by director Asher Penn, a fascinating lifelong profile featuring tons of archival footage documenting a physician, psychiatrist, philosopher, sorcerer of the mind named Gabor Mate. Very influential dude as far as addiction and trauma and healing. He's about as good as it gets. He's the top dog in that realm. So check that documentary out. Documentary number 5 is my own. Had to put my own sauce on there to get the train moving. It is called Finding Orson, a 45-minute documentary that I shot over the course of a year and a half, trying to reunite a beloved friend and
At least this
elderly
ad reel
community
is
member
like
named
real
Rick Shore
content.
with his lost
Not
parrot
trying to sell me
named
stuff.
Orson.
Maybe he's just too embarrassed to admit that he doesn't want the bird anymore.
So those are the 5 films on C5.now.
Oh, I see.
A totally
His
independent,
website,
creator,
C5.now.
residual forward, power to the people documentary platform, not gatekept by Hollywood. And what's unique about C5.now is that unlike the major studios, we're not afraid to take a risk. And of course, pay creators fairly. The link is in the pinned comment and description box of
So he's like promoting his own website on YouTube. It's kind
this
of funny.
video, and most importantly,
lot
it's
of
not
people
just
do
a
that,
website.
though.
It's an app on your phone and a smart TV app. So get your popcorn, get your remote.
And it's like if YouTube didn't have any like suppression or whatever, it might be paid creators more, even though in my opinion they do pay creators pretty well. Maybe he wouldn't have a need to go off site and make his own website.
Sit down. It's time to learn. I'll see you guys soon.
You went
We're
from
back.
being banned on Twitter to being on YouTube to creating
I'm
an
not on
entire show.
YouTube.
I know you're not, but now you have
Still not on YouTube.
Kick, and now you have all of these other things. You have an enormous platform. I want to find common ground of how much of a shithead Donald Trump is. We can get to that, okay? What I don't understand is how you didn't recognize that in 2016, and how you didn't recognize that in 2020, and how you didn't recognize that in 2024, because Donald Trump
I did in
hasn't.
24.
Because Donald Trump hasn't changed. Donald Trump hasn't changed at all. Donald Trump has been Donald Trump since he came out of the womb of a woman that was an immigrant to this country. And so what I want to know, though, is that I don't know how we get past this idea that the biggest problem that you have with your personal situation and how you extrapolate that to the situation of other white kids that are your age, that feel disenfranchised, that feel left out, that feel they don't have a shot at the American dream, is because of black and brown people, because of Mexicans, because of Venezuelans, because of Haitians, it's always other, Nick, with you. It seems to me, and I've listened to a lot of the stuff. It's always them. We need to build a wall. Where's the wall, Nick? You never built the wall. Why'd you vote for him?
And he's not, and when you talk about the crime topic, he's not entirely wrong.
2020. Why'd you vote for him in 2024?
I didn't vote for him in
Okay,
2020.
well,
didn't.
okay. My point being is that whenever you identify your problem as being something that is other, that you can point to, that's a minority, that is a group.
I believe Hunter Biden is saying that white people should blame themselves for all the problems in the United States right now.
Of people, that's the Jews, I mean, before, remember, all of us, you know, it was the Irish Catholics who were committing the crime, who weren't allowed into bars, who weren't allowed into, because you know why? Because they were dirty, poor, non-Europeans. They were Irish. Every time.
Well, I'd
It's
have to fact check it, but I do believe they were also committing a lot of the crime.
wrong. Every time history has proven that to be wrong in the United States of America. Every time. Inclusion has been our greatest strength. Diversity has been our greatest strength. And I hear you talk about this idea of white culture. What fucking white culture are you talking about, man? What
Shakespeare, Dante, Mozart. We're in Philadelphia, the founding fathers.
Yeah.
Yeah, there you
That's
go.
your white
How about
culture.
the Count of Monte Cristo? Would you consider that part of our white culture?
Sure.
Okay, well, it was written by a black man in France in the 1700s.
In a milieu
So-
of European civilization.
So what?
Because
So
you're
what? It's
picking
not white
out,
or
you're picking
black,
out one
Nick.
example.
Yeah, they're
It
zooming in on
really
his
I'm not
hands
just picking up
again.
one
It
example,
really is.
Nick.
That's listen.
Nick, I'm not. I really am not.
Hey guys, I think we're reaching what's called a rock and a hard place.
Yeah.
Let's talk about Israel.
Let's talk about
Well,
Israel.
Let me respond to this because
It's this.
you're telling
So,
me I'm
no,
always
but here-
blaming the other.
No, Nick, for real. Here's the thing, is that the way that you talk and throw out these
We'll
historical
give Andrew a
facts,
win
which,
for
by
that.
the way,
That was
aren't
funny.
fucking facts.
Oh,
Okay?
which ones aren't
No,
facts?
well, as it relates to the Civil Rights Movement in 1968, and the reason why we're out in the problem that we're in is because the Civil Rights Act passed in 1964. Dr. Martin Luther King was killed and shot by a white racist, white supremacist in 1968 on a balcony of a motel. That's the root of our trouble, because an entire people that have been disenfranchised and enslaved for over 400 years.
We're sick of hearing about that, though. It's 2026.
You may be sick of hearing about it, but you know what? They aren't. And I'll tell you what, Nick.
Get
here's the other
over
thing.
it. Get over
Nick,
it. It's America.
Okay, but Nick, you can say stuff like that, okay, without having to say it like that. And we look. This
That's
is
not how it started, though.
This is a legitimate argument, but it's Nick.
Guys, Nick, Hunter,
Right.
what do you guys make of the concept of community collapse? Have you guys heard of this?
No.
So it's got nothing to do with race, got nothing to do with money, but this is kind of a crazy stat. So in 2019, before COVID, 76% of Americans said they were a part of an
Oh, wait, I want to check this back.
but this is
I wanna
kind of a
check
crazy
this out,
stat.
sorry.
So in 2019, before COVID, 76% of Americans
Okay, from 2003 to 2020, time spent alone increased while time spent on in-person social engagement decreased.
said they were a part of an in-person community that gave them some kind of value. After COVID, and this year, it was 19%. So I think
Okay, so he's saying like people aren't hanging out with their friends in person. People are just like it's like how all the games like back in the day, like a video game, you used to have your friends come over and you play like, 4-player on the same screen, but now every game is like single player or you can just play online like on your own console or PC or whatever. He's saying less people are like doing things together, like community oriented things, and it's kind of being replaced by like individual stuff where you do interact with others, but it's like social media or like video games where you're not like sitting next to your friend playing the game.
that politics and race aside, one of the biggest issues is the collapse of social bonds, third spaces, communities.
Yeah, and a lot of people will counter this argument and say, well, that's because of religion. Everyone should just go to church. Like, church is your community.
In-person engagement, which comes with loneliness, more time online, and more division. I understand. I feel like you guys aren't going to agree. I want to talk about what you guys think can be done on an individual and community level to stop people from hating each other and to create more belonging and engagement.
Well, no,
Yeah, I'm not a very religious person, but I would say for people that like struggle with this kind of stuff, get your ass to church. It's not going to hurt.
number one, I think this. Okay, for real.
Podcasting.
No, not podcasting. This discussion.
Talking. Yeah,
For me to be
talking to people on the other side politically from you. Yeah, absolutely. I agree with that.
able to sit down with someone who I so vehemently disagree with and find some kind of common ground.
But I
don't
mean,
wanna- look,
guy at home who's
Yeah.
watching this on his phone just thinking, I wish I could go outside, but I don't know anyone.
okay, well, here's what
Let's
I'm talking about.
go.
It's all about connection. It is all about actually connecting with people. And I'm not talking about digitally connecting with people anonymously online. I'm talking about actually going out and connecting with people. And I don't have an answer.
Yeah, that's another thing. It's hard. So, like, say you go outside, or I don't know, you're on the bus. If you take public transport, I live in New York City, so it's like you're on the bus or subway. Nowadays, everyone's just staring at their phone, right? But if you think maybe like 30 years ago, you didn't have like a phone that you can just stare at your whole commute. So people would just talk more. They would talk to each other more. And you don't really get that as much these days. So it can be hard to, like, I guess, just go outside and make new friends.
To that. I don't any of us. We are in an look, man. I just think that you are targeting the wrong problem, Nick. I think that our biggest problem right now doesn't have to do with this cultural divide or racial divide or religious divide.
Yeah, if you do want to make it like racial or religious or whatever, you have to understand that there are a lot of people that do immigrate to this country that actually like don't appreciate the country or like its values. And that's kind of what you see, like we covered it on the channel, like the Somali scam, all the Somali like daycare fraud. It really is people immigrating here that have just been told like this is a shitty place. Try to take as much of it as you can, try to grift as much as you can. There are people that really believe the country is like they should be able to steal as much as possible from it because this country, it's built on stolen land, all that kind of rhetoric. It's not a good place. Um, but what you used to have with immigration is people that would actually come and contribute. And that still exists today, but you also have a large amount of people that don't contribute. They try to, grift.
Or the idea that America is becoming less white or culturally relevant anymore. I think our biggest problem is
still
literally
relevant,
an
but it is less
oligarchy
white.
that is inflaming every single division that we have.
And
by the way,
yeah.
and they're out for you, man, just as
I
much
know.
as anybody
I know.
else.
Well, and I agree.
So
saying-
those platforms that we talk about that you're not allowed to be on because Elon's out on the platform. Elon doesn't give a shit about anything other than one thing:
But Hunter, I just want to say
money,
real quick.
money, and
Well,
his money.
I don't necessarily even agree
Specifically with Elon, I mean, obviously Elon does care about money, but he does have other motives as well. He's trying to go to space.
with that.
Okay, well,
Okay,
you
but
may
real
not
quick,
agree with
back
that
to what I was
because you
saying.
don't
So
want to piss off
you're
Elon Musk.
Well, it's not, Elon doesn't even like
doesn't
me,
care
but I
about
just
Elon.
You're
disagree.
talking about the oligarchy, right? Like
Yeah.
these billionaires, right?
Yeah.
Like
Right.
the goal of corporate capture of these industries is community collapse. They are trying to engineer things to make it antisocial. They want to eliminate every single small business. They want to make
Okay, so he's saying the goal of these billionaires is community collapse. This is new to me. Why not? Let me back it up.
That's what I was
Because you
saying.
don't
So
want to piss
you're-
off
you're-
Elon
you're
Musk.
Well, it's not,
Yeah.
Elon
Yeah.
doesn't even like me,
Yeah.
but I just
You're
disagree.
talking about the oligarchy, right? Like
Yeah.
these billionaires, right?
Yeah.
Like the goal of corporate capture of these industries is community collapse. They are trying to
The goal of corporate capture is community collapse.
engineer things to make it
I mean, it
antisocial.
makes
They want
sense.
to
It's just
eliminate
new
every
to
single
me.
small business. They want to make everyone a single person shopper, no carpooling, like to be a lonely
Sure.
consumer who
Right,
only
right. I
buys
see what
things
he's
for
saying.
themselves online and doesn't talk to anyone in real life. That's what they want in real life. Like all this data center shit, like everything they're doing is in a way trying.
Yeah, Tim Dillon was talking about that the other day on his most recent podcast. He was saying like all these restaurants that used to be good get bought up by large corporations, and it's just like the blockade in Gaza. They'll make sure that the food you get is just enough calories you need for that meal so that you get hungry again later and you come back. And how, like, specifically, he uses the example Jersey Mike's. Jersey Mike's, like, the portions used to be a lot bigger, if you ever heard of things like shrinkflation. And he's talking about it's large corporations that say, hey, we need to increase our profit margin, so we kind of shrink the size of the food that you get. Very good point. He's right about that.
And to break up in-person engagement. And I feel like for you guys, it might be hard to answer because both of you guys are what they call like controversial public figures. Like there's places that you like.
Well, yeah, one is a criminal, one is controversial.
2018, if you were to go to a dive bar in, let's say, Poplar Bluff, Missouri, you would have been in danger. You know what I mean? At that time, for
Yeah.
you were in danger physically in a left-wing city. It's just the truth. So
Yep.
I feel like you guys have been deprived of the ability to have normal lives. You especially, but I mean you in general. But I feel like your controversies came a little bit later in life.
they
For
both
you, I
have.
feel like you haven't even been able to grow up as a normal person. Is that accurate
Yeah,
to say?
that's true.
I would agree neither of them were able to grow up as a normal person.
Well, and in terms of, building community back and everything like that, the data says
You know
that
what? For those two solid points, we're going to give a point to Andrew.
really the loss of society is the fact that we don't encounter people anymore. For example, on your way to work or, in ways that are unexpected. People wake up in their house, which is separate from everybody else. They get in their car by themselves, drive
Right.
to work by themselves, and then they meet with their colleagues and everything. But then they
It's a little different. I do have to say I can't relate to that as much, just because in New York City, like most people take like the subway to get to work. They don't drive.
go right
But I
home,
know what
go
he's saying.
home, have a beer, watch Netflix until they go to bed. Next day starts all over again. And so, I think it has a lot to do with maybe how we structure the cities. I think, honestly, a big part of it, there's like this abundance mindset with liberals. Liberals want to have prosperity and everything like that. How can you have that when the cities are not safe? I think that one of the ways, for example, if you want to have those encounters that are unplanned or spontaneous, they're going to happen maybe on the subway, on the bus, on your way to work. People don't want to ride the subway anymore. People don't want to ride the bus. They don't
I just feel
like
that
it's
if
safe.
you look at the data, like right now, 2026, I think 2025 had the lowest.
Shit, I got a comment about that. That is actually very much true. So it's funny because specifically in New York City where I live, like there are a lot of like liberal people that vote in like liberal politicians that are soft on crime. And then they say, oh, the bus or subway is dangerous. I can't ride it. and it's like very it's they're comically unaware
Lowest
of
homicide rate
how
of any year
bad
in
like
America
the
for like the
policies
past
are that
4
they vote
years.
for.
I feel like if you compare data from the 90s, like the cities, I get what you're saying, but the cities I have noticed are a lot safer. They're also, becoming more expensive as well. It could have something to do with it.
yeah.
You're absolutely right. It's what you're saying, Nick, is impossible to refute, right? Because everybody has an experience with violence or witnessing a crime, or whether it's just in their local newspaper or not. Is that I don't think that is in any way limited to only urban environments. I take the top 10 poorest red states in the country, and their crime rates are 10 times what many urban centers are.
So
Yeah, but it's also that you could get into that, and he is right about that. But also the way they deal with crime in red states is they deal with crime much harsher. They're hard on crime, so they're gonna have more crime. In like blue states, they're softer on crime. So there might be a lot of crimes that are committed in blue states that aren't counted as crimes, but if they were committed in red states, they would be counted as crimes. So I mean, he's right, but it's not the same comparison. You can't compare them.
You'd be comparing like
It's a
West
little different.
Virginia, coal country, disenfranchised to
Yeah.
like an urban neighborhood.
Yeah, in terms
basically.
of per capita crime,
Yeah, that's
in
very
terms
different.
of per capita murder, in terms of per capita child sexual abuse, yeah. I think the
And
things
he should not be bringing up child sexual abuse.
that people really care about, things like that, is their own personal safety.
Yeah.
It is not limited to African American urban or Latino American urban environments. It's
No, it's not limited to, but it's that whole per capita thing.
not. It exists. Carjackings do happen, but you know where they happen? They happen in Biloxi, Mississippi. Just
All right. Where is the carjacking? Oh, I can't see it. In Mississippi, Biloxi, national average is 22, but there was 600 incidents.
as much as they happen in Chicago.
I'm skeptical.
And then in Chicago, vehicle theft, there were 73,000 incidents, and the national average is 22. But you'd have to compare, they do have the difference percentage. They're saying, I believe it says here there's 140% more vehicle thefts in Chicago than in that, what was it, Mississippi example?
America,
he
you know where
gave.
they happen? They happen
I believe that's
in
what this
Biloxi,
graph is
Mississippi,
saying.
just as much as they happen in Chicago.
I'm
So I do believe they're fact checking Hunter Biden to be wrong, but I could be wrong on that.
skeptical of that.
I mean,
And
I just think the idea of like safety,
Well,
safety
by
at
the
risk,
way-
crime has been. I feel like media has overblown the level of
everybody's
danger.
going
like-
to fact check
Well, yeah,
both of us
that's true.
on this. And
Yeah.
but I agree with you. But my point about it, all of it is, though, is that you can always point to a reason, Nick. There's never been a time in which there hasn't been crime in major urban areas where you pack a lot of people
He could have just ended it right after crime. There's never been a time where there hasn't been crime. Crime will always exist.
in. You're right, though, is that the difference between us feeling like each other were our neighbors and that we can find some common ground is the fact, you could live in existence now and by the time you're 56 years old and never really have to leave your house to make a living, you don't go to the community center anymore. And I don't know how to fix that.
remote
And I
job.
certainly
it
don't
all
know how to
connects
fix it
back
in
to
the age of
politics,
AI.
right? Because community is like an essential human need, if not the most important thing. So when you were to
I would honestly argue that the left is like anti-community more than the right. I really would argue that.
deprived of that, you're more likely to look for a radical solution and be like, everything's broken. We need to try something really out there. So you might embrace something more reactionary on left or right to be like, fuck this, we need something new. And
What he says makes sense, but I kind of disagree because we saw like back in the 60s or whatever when people were more community oriented is when people kind of fringed off into like all these kind of like cult groups. We don't really see that as much today. So he makes a good point, but I do think it's just blatantly factually provably wrong.
I'm not trying to draw this like male loneliness, like incel pipeline that the media tries to do all the time. But do you see a connection there between like people being lonely and having less friends and subcultural
absolutely.
choice taking over community value systems? Or
Yeah, there was one crazy statistic I saw that was like, I don't know the percent, but like a really large percent of people like don't have close friends. And it was like kind of sad.
engagement and people just like driving to the extreme?
100%. I think social dislocation is probably the #1 problem of our times, because you look at the young people, and you're right, it is one of those essential human needs, is to connect and have that sense of familiarity, to be seen, to see and to be seen. And that's something young people don't have. And I think, by the way, you look at the way young people socialize and even the mentality, I think a lot of young people have this.
All these examples he's shown here, the rave, the concert, and then I think that's Kai Cenat or whatever.
Absolute drive to go to college. Why? It's an extension of
College
high
students.
school. And what do high school and college?
All those examples that they just gave on the Channel 5 interview are rich people. They're not showing low-income people. I think that's important to point out.
Have in common. It's a community. You're in the quad. You can see and be seen. There's sort of like a status, reputation. You're constantly involved with other people. And I think everybody, young people, look at when they graduate from college like falling off a cliff and now life is over. Because now you just have.
Yes. So I had one friend that, they did all the things. They were like a great student, went to college, got a good degree with good grades, had to enter the real world. And they crashed out. They ended up in like a mental facility for a couple weeks. Like what he's saying is very real. Some people, and I would say it's like some people aren't prepared for the real world. That's kind of my take on it.
Your job, the gym, and going back home, and that's it. And this is why a lot of young people then want to move to the big cities. Got to go to New York, got to go to Chicago or LA, where it's happening. And they want to get a condo or an apartment down.
That's also where like the high-paying jobs are.
Town, because they want to go to the bar scene, extend college a little bit longer. And I think that's just not really a sustainable way to have a society. There has to be a way for people to still have that sense of community outside of, let's say, college and high school, even into their adulthood, and then into their.
Yeah, go to church, go to join a CrossFit gym, join a run club, join a bird watching community. There are communities that exist. It's just people like don't do these things anymore. They just look on their phone. They go on Facebook or whatever.
Old age. So yeah, I mean, that's one of the biggest problems going on. And I agree. I think it drives, even to your point about the whites only community in Arkansas. I think it is.
Yeah, I wish I was more familiar with that. I don't really know much. I've heard about this, but I don't follow it.
Is driving these, let's call it ghettoization or insulation of people going into these artificial values-based communities.
Yeah.
Because where are you going to find people? Go online. Go online, start spouting about politics, or, even not just for incels and right-wingers, but even on the left. Someone like Tyler Robinson, he's on Discord. He's on Discord.
Yeah, there's a whole phrase for like trans people that like disowned their family because their family was conservative or whatever. So they have a phrase for like their chosen family or something like that. Like it happens on the left as well.
All of the Overwatch players and all the LGBTQ or whatever. And I think that, there's a tendency there where everybody kind of amplifies some of the resentment or feelings there. So I agree, that's a huge driver.
So for you, like back in high school when you were like first kind of starting to use the internet and all that, did you build most of your community in person outside Chicago, or was it mostly online?
When I was in high school or college?
High school.
The high school, I had real friends in
Right.
Model UN.
I feel like in high school, most people do have real friends. And then, you have less in college. And then after college, you have even less. Like it just keeps getting lower and lower.
And that was my favorite thing. So that was.
But you were still creating like some kind of content at that time.
Not in high school, no.
Okay, so you went to BU.
Yes.
Were most of your friends like classmates there? Like when did you start to kind of build your online persona and community around your content?
It wasn't until I left college. So to that point, I had friends in college. And then when I left college and started my show independently, then it was all people online. And everybody I knew was people from my community for the most part.
But your
People online
cancellation from
suck.
mainstream platforms was effectively the same thing as like a community collapse for your personal life, right?
Yeah, well, I wouldn't even say it was just the cancellation, but even more just returning home from college.
What do you think would have happened to you, like career-wise and personal life-wise, if you never would have been mainstreamed? I mean, I guess removed from major social media platforms.
Oh, it'd be a lot easier to make friends.
And money.
Let's say, because being banned on Instagram, you might as well be dead. In Generation Z, that's how everybody sees each other, meets each other, talks to each other. So I think I probably have a wider, livelier circle.
Do you feel like you had less friends after that?
No, I'd say it's about the same.
No, but I mean, you said that like you feel like it would have been easier to make friends.
It would have been easy to make more friends. Yeah, sure.
Just socialize. It would have been easier because everyone's like, "Hey, what's your Instagram?" And he's got to be like, "Oh, I don't have one."
So aside from your career, how was your like personal and social life affected in those following years?
Well, it's brutal, you know. I mean, because everybody that I knew from high school is on Instagram, on Facebook, and I'm just not on there. It's almost like you're removed from the earth. For Generation Z, I understand for older people, for different generation, people still meet up or stay in touch in other ways. But if you're not online as a young person, you might as well be dead.
Do you think you would have said like some of the more extreme things that you did say if you know?
I will say that's a trend that's becoming more popular. People that are off the grid, that don't have any social media, that's starting to like become a thing.
I guess we're allowed to remain on the mainstream internet.
Absolutely, yeah.
Looking back, and I'm not trying to get you to like take something back necessarily. What's like one thing that you said when you were younger where you're like, fuck, wish I could take that back?
You know, I don't know if I regret what I've said. It's just how you say it.
Yeah, like, can you think of an example of like when you listen back to something and you're like, geez, I wish
So I did this rally in 2023 called Fuentes Rally 2. And the one comment I said, we're talking about a spiritual battle between Christians and everybody else. And I said, we're in a holy war. I said, and we're going to make them die in a holy war. And the second I said that, I was like, didn't mean to say that. It's an extemporaneous speech. So you don't rehearse it. You just say things. And I was like, didn't mean that. Shouldn't have said that. So it's always the how. It's always in the delivery that I...
Nick, I can think of about 4 things that I really wish you would take back right now. But
like
what? The cookies in the oven.
Oh, that's a good one.
Well, that's a joke.
But it's not, Nick. My wife is Jewish. My son is Jewish. No, Nick.
Come
Nick,
on.
I promise you. Don't get mad. Okay?
I'm not mad.
Okay,
it's just...
I know. But you gotta understand.
All right.
How.
All right. Sorry. I'm so sorry. They're getting into like Israel stuff. So we're gonna take a bathroom break. Come right back, and we're gonna save this. We'll be back. Give us like 1 or 2 minutes. All right, sorry about that. We are back. Let me rewind it just by like 10 seconds.
Jewish. My son is Jewish. No, Nick.
Okay, yeah, they're
Nick,
getting into
I
the
promise
Jewish
you.
stuff. This is
Don't
gonna
get
be
mad.
good. It's gonna be
I'm not mad.
spicy.
It's
I know. But you gotta understand how incredibly, whether it's a joke or not, it's a lived experience passed down from generation to generation, whether or not and by
This
the way,
stuff is
not
hard to
just from the
comment about
Holocaust,
on YouTube.
not just from 1939 on, 2,000 years of history. Okay, forget about Israeli politics and Netanyahu, because I think we agree about Bibi Netanyahu. I'm positive we do, and I've listened to you talk about it. But you got to understand. Look at me, man.
I see.
It hurts.
I see you.
It hurts.
Does it?
Nick, I promise you it does. When you compare my wife's family to cookies going to an oven, it hurts. And you got to understand that. And by the way, I'm looking at you.
Yeah.
And I believe that you do know that.
See, that's where you
Nick,
lose me. That's where you lose me.
That's
Okay,
where
Nick,
you lose
okay,
me.
I'm telling you.
Well, listen, are we here to talk or are you here to lecture me and preach
Okay, no,
to
you're
me?
right. Let me listen. Oh, you're right.
So
You're right.
this is the
Okay.
thing, because, you know, and I think this is a disconnect. I think that the left and even people on the right, they're losing the young people. Why do people love me? Not in spite of, but because of the outrageous things that I say. Not in spite of, but because I say offensive things. because I,
Solid
let's say,
point.
drop the N-word on a video or something. It's because people are sick of the preachiness, the
Nick.
lecturing.
Okay, I'll listen
They
to what
really
you
are.
say. But Nick, I disagree.
So I can't really say either of them get a win or a loss here. It's just two different perspectives. You know, I don't think either of them are right or wrong.
think that you're appealing to the lowest common denominator of thought. If you're hating on the people that they think are the reason for their suffering, then you must be on their side. I don't think that you believe that about the Holocaust. I think you think the Holocaust did happen. But forget about whether or not you think that
It definitely did. But if you want to break down the official narrative, you know, it gets a little bit tricky. It really does. I'm not saying it didn't happen. Of course it did. But there are people that might use it to like push a certain agenda. We've seen
used
that happen
politically in a
before.
way that is obtuse and wrong. But I think that you do believe that. And I think that you have to. Like, what's your cultural heritage?
I'm Italian, Mexican, and Irish.
Mexican.
Some people are saying he's also part Jewish.
When did they come in Italian? When did the Mexicans come? When did the Irish come?
Mexicans came, turn of the
Who cares as long as they came legally?
last century.
Yeah.
Italians came in the 1860s.
Yeah.
Irish came in the early 1900s.
Okay, so maybe you wouldn't care about something that is like grossly offensive just on the face of it and think that, oh, why can't people just believe that that's funny? But you got to understand, it's from a perspective of somebody that has that trauma, and I think that there is such a thing as generational trauma, and those stories are passed down generation to generation. When you say something like that, they completely shut off. They can't hear another thing that you're saying about this cultural disconnect, about losing communities, about the feeling of being left out.
Yeah, it's kind of like if you walked into a Jewish neighborhood, you would feel, you know, ostracized. And they might not say anything like you don't belong here, but they're just not gonna communicate with you or whatever. Same kind of thing.
Out or left behind in a world in which there no longer is this sense of community.
Yeah,
All the other
exactly. If you walked into a Jewish neighborhood, you would feel left behind.
things that you say,
It goes both
everybody
ways.
else is left, and what you do pick up, you pick up the ones that hear the dog whistle. You pick up the ones that say, yeah, that's the way that I feel, because it's radical. It's like he's willing to say the thing.
And that's the thing. If you want to talk about radical, I mean, there's two people up here. I mean, there's the Channel 5 guy, but then there's Nick Fuentes, who you could call radical, but then there's Hunter Biden, who, after you've seen his laptop, you could call criminal. And it's like, what's worse?
That nobody else will say in this environment, and then you
like,
get,
is Hunter Biden really the guy that should be criticizing Nick
niche,
Fuentes?
but,
Not in my opinion.
But love from that, and I just don't believe that you believe that. I don't believe that you think that it was appropriate for you to say something like that. I don't think you believe that it's appropriate to say women shouldn't vote.
Let's give Nick a second.
I think that everything Nick has done is way more appropriate than the choices that Hunter Biden has made.
To respond to the first thing.
I know I talk
Well-
constantly. That's how I do
He
this.
makes good points. He's just not the right person to make those points.
It's all good. It's all good.
I apologize.
I get it, and I understand that perspective, and it is offensive, and it is provocative, and
Yes.
that's sort of what makes it funny. I mean, what we would say in our generation is edgelording. We're being edgy. We're being provocative. And I think that it is that kind of overbearing sense for our entire...
And you see that with streamers a lot. Like, they have to be edgy or provocative. Oh, that's how you get clicks.
I'm the king of edgelord.
Well,
I'm the
in
king
the
of
sort of-
provocative.
Let's let Nick,
Hey, they put in some pictures of him.
Nick explain
I know.
the psychology.
apologize.
You
That
know,
was good
it's
stuff.
that overbearingness that my generation's had our entire lives. That's not appropriate. That's not funny. Think of the trauma. That's racist. That's white supremacist. That
Right. But only if you're white will they say that.
makes it funny, that makes it different, interesting. And let me grant, by the way, I think that now, and this is maybe a concession towards you, now that my kind of humor has become mainstream and popular, I don't even think that that's funny anymore. People do the
Right.
edgelording thing. It's become so...
The problem is people try to repeat the shit that Nick Fuentes says, but they don't know what they're talking about. They can't make the arguments. Like, whether you're a fan of Nick Fuentes or not, you have to admit he is talented. He's a smart guy. I mean, if you don't like him, I'm sorry, but that's just the truth. And so what does happen a lot is you get fans of his that don't really know what they're talking about, and they start spewing some shit, and it's not good for anybody.
commonplace and so tired.
That's
I don't
a
think
real
it's
thing.
that funny or impressive. That's a big part of why I kind of moved past it, because 10 years ago, it was treated like sacrilegious. And there's something
Right.
funny about the fact that you could say a word or make a joke and make people lose their minds and freak out.
And that still exists
it was
today,
like an
just not to the
international
same
incident
extent.
if you said the wrong thing. And I think that's what made it tempting, especially for a young person. You want to rebel. You want to be defiant. You want to be a little revolutionary or something. Now, as time has gone on, I think that's become a fad. Everybody does it. It's lost its power. And I think that, by the way, part of why we're getting less of it is because instead of getting the preachy lecture from the left saying that's not appropriate, people just roll their eyes. Now, when an edgy white person says the N-word, people roll their eyes and go, really? You know, that joke?
Right. You don't need to deplatform and debank someone that drops an N-bomb. It's just like everyone kind of knows, like, hey, if he's going to be doing that, just don't watch that content.
Again, people hear
That's the best
someone wears a
solution.
Nazi costume, makes a Holocaust joke. People go, really? That joke again? It's not impressive. It's not funny anymore. We've seen it before. And
Right,
ironically, that is what makes you get less of it when you disempower those things by not giving them this over-the-top reaction, pretending like it's some great travesty.
So you think the new counterculture is going to be woke again?
No, I think it's a synthesis.
Define woke. Left woke or right woke? Let me put the subtitles back on.
A synthesis of post-edgelordism and wokeism?
Yes, because I think
I love
that
that.
wokeism
Sounds good
had
to
its
me.
excesses.
Yeah.
Edgelording also has its excesses.
Yeah,
and I
they
think
both
now
do.
we're finding a middle ground between saying the edgiest thing we can think of with no regard for anyone and saying everything is racist. You know, if you say something, you should lose your job. We're finding a middle ground.
That seems like he's wishing for kind of a perfect world. I don't think we're quite there, but I do agree we're closer to what he's saying than we were back in 2017.
Where, you know, maybe it's tastefully offensive in small doses, less is more.
So it sounds like you believe in the survival
Wait,
of
we
the
need to
American
replay that
experiment.
laugh.
Yeah, I really do. And
Did you hear that?
less is more.
So it sounds like you,
All right, that's an L for Hunter Biden. What kind of laugh is that? That's a crackhead
believe in
laugh.
the survival of the American experiment.
Yeah, I really do. And listen, I don't think everything about wokeism was bad necessarily.
What's the best thing about wokeism?
I think that
The best thing about
genuinely
it-
it has made people more respectful and empathetic. Because let's be honest, 20 years ago, let's say when I was growing up, I think there was a lot of cruelty. And I think there were some hateful attitudes. And I think as time has gone on, this younger generation, they may not be even left-wing. They may not be what
Yeah, I kind of can see what he's saying.
you'd consider woke, but I think they are respectful of people that have different ideas or, you know, a different way of life or from a
As long as it's not conservative ideas, then they're respectful to it.
different culture. You know, we make jokes all the time about the fact that I'm like a far-right guy and I'm Mexican. People say I'm a white supremacist and I'm Mexican.
Right,
And
he's a
people make a
Nazi.
joke that a lot of far-right people are Hispanic. And I think that's a consequence that there's very little genuine racial hatred in anybody's DNA anymore, or any kind of hatred. And I think that's
at least in the United States. In other countries, it's different.
positive, but that went too far. I think some of the other stuff went too far as well.
You know, one of these strange things about sitting in a room with these two.
All right. He's doing an ad here out of respect for the content that we're stealing. We're going to play the ad. So if you're watching a past stream, you can just skip ahead. If you're live, I do apologize.
Is that they agree on almost nothing, but they've both lived the same nightmare. Hunter had a laptop turn into a decade of strangers picking through his texts, his private photos, his voice memo, and even his bank record. Whereas Nick has been doxxed, swatted, had his DMs leaked probably more times than he can count, and more shenanigans. Different politics, but kind of same experience. Somebody somewhere decided that their personal information was public property, so they exhumed it and sent it off to the world. But here's the thing that most people don't know. A huge amount of that information actually isn't stolen. It's for sale, legally. Currently, there are over 420 companies called data brokers, whose entire business is collecting your home address, your phone number, your relatives, your previous addresses, your income bracket, and selling access to anybody who pays. Last October, one of these vendors got breached and 70,000 people had their government IDs exposed in one day. That's what this ecosystem looks like when it fails, and it fails constantly. Now you might be thinking, okay, but I'm not Hunter Biden, Andrew Callahan, or Nick Fuentes. Nobody's coming after me. And honestly, I get that. But here's what actually happens when your info is sitting in these databases. Every spam call you get, every spam text about a package you didn't order, every weird email from a bank that you don't use, that's the data broker economy. It's why scammers know your name before they call. This issue is affecting so many Americans. The FBI just said that Americans lost $21 billion to online fraud last year, and Americans over 60 lost $7.7 billion of that. And the fastest growing category of scam types relates to AI voice clones. It's a scam where somebody calls your mom pretending to be you in your voice from a number that looks like yours. But guess what? That scam doesn't work if the scammer doesn't already know your name, your mom's name, and her phone number. And guess where they got that stuff? All three, data brokers. There's also the issue of who can find your address. Any ex, any estranged family member, anybody from a situationship you left years ago who went crazy, 20 bucks on a people search site, and they know where you live right now. Most people don't think about that until it matters, and by then it's too late, you're dead. That's where Incogni comes in. You just sign up, and they take it from there. They contact data brokers directly, demand that your info be removed, and send fresh sweeps every 60 to 90 days so nothing quietly gets added back. They've processed over 245 million removal requests to date, and unlike most other competitors in this industry, they had Deloitte, they had Deloitte, they had Deliote, one of the big four auditing firms, independently verify how many brokers they cover and how often they actually follow up. The numbers didn't lie. The numbers aren't marketing. They are audited. Incogni is the shit. They didn't come to play around. And guess what? On the unlimited and family unlimited plans, you also get their exposure scanner. It crawls the web looking for personal info outside the usual broker sites and hands anything it finds to Incogni's removal specialists, who are real people, not AI robots on the other side. Recently, I ran my own info through Incogni and immediately found old addresses, phone numbers, and family members listed across a bunch of people search websites. Within the first week, though, dozens of removal requests were already in progress, and you can watch the whole thing happen on the Incogni dashboard. Go to incogni.com/channel5, use code channel5, all caps, 60% off. All right, back to Hunter and Nick.
All right, we're back.
No, not a little bit, I guess, from high school.
Can you do a little bit?
Un poco.
Okay,
I don't
okay.
speak it from my dad, so.
Did you grow up like around a lot of Mexicans?
No, all white people for the most part.
Did they know you were Mexican?
They did. And
that's the thing. I can't really tell he's even Mexican.
yeah, not gonna lie. I mean, people made fun of me for that.
What'd they say?
Well, like for example, one time when I was in Model UN, I was entering high school as a freshman. They looked at
Okay, I guess that picture.
my name on the roster without knowing me. And they told me this after the fact, the leadership of the club, they said, oh, we thought you were just some Mexican kid, so we gave you a bad committee assignment.
Wow.
But see, I heard that and I laughed. I said, that's funny. You know, whereas a lot of people would say, oh, that's traumatic. I'm a victim of racism. You know, I think that's, you know, it's just a human thing.
Yeah, I always felt like growing up as like a white kid in America.
What if you went, wait, what if you were and identified as being Mexican and they
I would still laugh.
came to you and they didn't tell you that's the reason that they gave you all the bad committee assignments?
Then I wouldn't
That
know.
would be unfair.
Yeah.
It's
That's
interesting.
the
I'm just
point.
saying.
That's the whole point, isn't it?
And
so
I'm
you
not-
may find it funny because you pass as a white Anglo-Christian.
Do you think I pass?
What?
Do you think I pass as a white Anglo-Christian?
Well,
It's like, thanks,
I
bro,
don't
really?
think you
Yeah,
pass. I think you
pass.
identify as it. Yeah.
He's like,
yeah.
dabs him up.
Yeah. Yeah.
Let's go.
Yeah. No, but really,
We'll give Hunter his first win. That was hilarious.
for real. And my point is that I heard you do an interview, okay? And I literally on the write up here, I was like, you were talking about how you were raised on like Mark Levin in high school.
Right.
And the thing that you liked the most about Mark Levin is how cruel he was to the callers.
Mm-hmm.
I don't see. I don't get that. I like the joke about the cookies.
It's just all about like interaction. That's how you get good interaction. Say you're a streamer. If you are a little bit mean to your viewers or whatever, like people do like that.
Maybe a joke and it may be edgelording and you may not really mean it, but you got to realize the cruelty to it. And without going like, oh, like, you know, whan, like.
I don't know if I would say it's cruel. Like the people don't have to, no one's forced to watch Nick Fuentes. They could just not watch him.
You know, people got to stop crying about the past. And that's the thing, is that I think that you have such an opportunity to talk to a generation of disaffected, angry, legitimately angry people in a way.
So he is admitting that they're, by his words, disaffected. I don't know if that's the
of
best word for
disaffected,
it.
angry,
Disaffected, angry.
legitimately angry people in a
People.
way in which is positive without having to do that shit. And by the way, and I'm not holding you responsible
If he didn't do that shit, he wouldn't have as many viewers as he does.
for like, you know, the end of you know, my conception of Western civilization, which is different than yours. But I just don't get it. I don't get
For sure,
why
yeah.
you find the cruelty. And I think that, by the way, I think that that's why you like Trump. I mean, this
Why?
is, I'm making, you know, like a very unfair leap, because his first instinct is cruelty. His first instinct is to find the fault in the other. About everything, by the way. It's not his fault that that we're in a war with Iran, that he's ended 38 times and, you know, and started 39.
He ends it every Friday and starts it back up again every Monday for the stock market.
It's not his fault that inflation's high. It's not his fault that the wall didn't get built. It's not his fault.
Well, here, okay. The wall, like, if the wall doesn't, you could tear down the wall right now. Illegal immigration is like very low. So whatever he's doing is working. You don't need a physical wall. Although there is a physical wall, although I'm not exactly sure like how much of the border it covers. But either way, like that's kind of a bad argument there. Not going to give him a loss for it because he's not wrong.
That ICE is killing people on the streets in these places.
It was Renee Nicole Good. She tried to run over an ICE agent. Another criminal tried to attack an ICE agent when he had a gun. Ended up getting shot. I'm not saying that was justified, but what do you really expect to happen? It looked like suicide by cop to me.
Places. It's just the cruelty of it. Maybe it's a generational thing. I got friends who are Jewish that are going to be really, really fucking pissed off that I'm sitting next to you. And what do I tell them? What do I tell them why it's
Who cares?
okay
Tell them to
for me
fuck
to
off.
sit and have this conversation
cares?
with you?
I
Who
guess
cares
I
what they
just
think?
have such a different opinion of that. You know, why should we have to explain ourselves to talk to anybody?
No,
and
you don't
why
have
is it
to.
that saying the wrong words or making a particular joke makes it so the Jewish person wouldn't want to watch my show? I have a lot of Jewish fans. I mean, some of my best friends are Jewish. I've had Jewish employees, and they recognize that, you know, just because I'm not necessarily nice all the time doesn't mean I'm hateful, doesn't mean, I don't even think they see it as cruel. I think they see it as it's a little rough around the edges.
Yeah, the way I see it is don't look at a person's rhetoric, look at their actions. And Nick Fuentes doesn't have any actions that show he's actually like a hateful person.
And maybe that's the difference, is I guess it's just attributing this weight to something that be considered a joke and maybe doesn't have a cruel intention behind it. Like, you know, Mark Levin, you got to remember at the end of the day, it's an entertainment show. It's entertainment. People call in. He gets frustrated with them. It's part of what I do on my show. And it's not always nice, but it's funny. And I don't think it's mean-spirited necessarily. And I don't think it's that big of a deal. So, I mean,
Yeah, I
the
totally
thought
agree
that
with
I would,
that.
like, for example, with you, people would say, why
We'll actually give him a win. I think that's a good point.
do you talk to Hunter Biden? His father and his DOJ froze your money and put you on a no-fly list. I'd say, so what? I mean, it's just talking. I don't think talking's a big deal, you know?
Froze my
I think
money
it's a
and
good
put me
thing,
on a no-fly
actually.
list, too.
Talk.
There you go. See, so we got that in common.
It's a different question that I have that kind of weaves everything together. How do
The
you think
weave.
like October 7th and the subsequent like pro-Palestine movement and the online worlds it created led to a growing audience on the right?
October 7th in
Yeah,
particular?
yeah.
Well, I think it highlighted and brought to the forefront how captured the right wing is by Israel, which is
Yeah,
very unique.
absolutely.
I think the Democrats and the Republicans are pro-Israel, but the Republican Party has this inextricable institutional connection with the Israel lobby,
Yeah, the Republican Party doesn't even try to hide it.
with this Likud government in particular. And I think people just started to see the hypocrisies. The hypocrisy was brought to the forefront, which is America first, but not with Israel. No new wars except for with Iran.
Under Trump, we will have no more wars. No more wars. No more wars. They said he will start a war. I'm not going to start a war. I'm going to stop wars.
And I do want to make a comparison here. So this is Trump campaigning that he's not going to start any new wars. And one thing that Mamdani, who's like a DSA super leftist, the mayor of New York City, one thing he campaigned on is that if BB came to New York, he would arrest him. And it's like politicians on both sides do this. They say shit when they're campaigning, but they don't actually follow through with it once they get elected. So to say that, Trump got us into a war, I mean, I don't agree with the war, obviously, but say that he did that and he failed on a campaign promise and that's why he's bad. But to not point out the fact that there are politicians on the left that do the same thing, is disingenuous.
Tonight, Iran's Navy is gone.
You know, we're going to be racist and all these things, but don't you dare be anti-Semitic. Don't even, think about it.
I see good things about Hitler also. Every human being has something of value that they brought to the table, especially
Kanye, you're going to get me demonetized. What the fuck? I'm going to get banned.
So I think that on the right wing, it made it unignorable that there's this ideological institutional capture.
I just feel like a lot of straightforward, like just anti-Semite influencers were taking advantage of the post-October 7th discourse to push other ideas.
Here's the thing. Yeah, someone like Simone Gaines, Simone Gaines? I forget his name exactly, but you have to realize this. Say you're someone who doesn't like Israel meddling in the United States politics. You have to understand there are a lot of people that don't like Jewish people. They just have religious hate. Think of certain sects of Muslims. They actually are raised to believe they want to destroy all the Jewish people. And there are also like Jewish people that have the same thing. Like they want to ethnically cleanse Palestine. So word of caution, try not to get mixed in with those people. To have a critique of how the Israeli government is performing and what they're doing is legitimate. But you're going to get a lot of people on both sides that just hate. They just have religious hate. And in my opinion, you should try to stay out of that. That's not good.
Broader ideas about Jewish people as a whole.
Come out and say it. Like, I think that Jews are causing a disproportionate amount of problems in the United States.
Well, I mean, I think it's hard to ignore some of those other conversations. I know that it's now become maybe in vogue to say that the Israel issue is very narrow. It's just Netanyahu. It's just the Likudniks. It's just the Israel lobby. But, what would you say about someone like Larry Ellison? I mean, somebody like that.
I believe Larry Ellison donates to the IDF, so you could group him in there with the same people. I could be wrong on that.
I don't think fits neatly into this, let's say, problem of Netanyahu.
As far as installing Barry Weiss and whatnot.
Yes.
Gotcha.
Yeah,
because this is somebody who's not Israeli. He's not even a religious Jew, but he's ethnically Jewish and has this deep affinity for the state of Israel.
I feel a deep emotional connection to the state of Israel and the Israeli people.
And is using and mobilizing his power and resources and connections to benefit Israel in the private sector. And so if you were to say, what's a law that we could pass to prevent that kind of influence, what would it look like? He's an American citizen. He can't buy a media company and hire Barry Weiss to run CBS News.
Yeah, of course he can.
And yet we recognize that's a big problem.
I just feel the conflation of like anti-Zionism and like Holocaust denial played into the hands of the Israeli propaganda apparatus. Because then they
that is a good point. He's right about that.
Can say, hey, look, these people that oppose what we're doing in Palestine also don't think the Holocaust happened.
Like they're the cabal or whatever, however you want to call it. They want to label you as an anti-Semite, so you go out and you say something anti-Semitic. It's kind of like a playbook.
It's a big jump in the public perception.
It was almost to me as if that was your intent, to lose any legitimacy about any argument as it relates to Israel and the Likud government.
Yeah, so I didn't realize Hunter Biden was married to someone who's Jewish. So we are getting a very different take. He doesn't have a normal take on this. You have to understand his wife is Jewish.
Is to say those edgelording things or whatever.
Jews are money changers, bullshit artists, psychopaths, charlatans, grifters, manipulators.
I don't know anybody that can hear you after you say that, including myself. It delegitimizes everything because I don't think that you a little bit more compassion.
Let's try to stay a little. I don't want to do any character attacks on Nick.
I'm not attacking his character. I'm not attacking. I promise you. I'm
no,
not.
But as far as compassion, I more just mean straightforward. Do you feel like the rise in anti-Semitic online influencers post-October 7th has given Israel more ammunition to work with in terms of casting everyone who opposes what they're doing as just like a rabid Jew?
Yeah, sure. It has given them more ammunition, but also like the claim is they lost a whole generation. Like the youth. Like the American youth does not support Israel. Like after the war in Gaza, So there's pros and cons to it.
Hater.
In some cases, yeah, in some cases, sure. But I also think that's overstated because I think that, look, let's just be honest. I do believe the political left wants to make the Israel issue very narrow. And they want to say that the issue is this genocide in Palestine. And on some level, they think that the Israeli government is racist.
Yeah, and people like this guy, like Hassan, like a lot of the reason he hates on Israel is not because they're committing a genocide in Palestine. One of the reasons is because he's like Arab or Muslim or whatever, and he just hates Jewish people. He has religious hate. And this is the kind of shit I'm talking about. Try not to get mixed up with this.
Baying pig, you bloodthirsty, violent pig dog.
Right.
And that's the problem.
That
and
is
I
a
think
problem.
that ignores that
we'll give him a
there
win for
is
that.
a broader conversation, and it does have to do with the Holocaust, and it does have to do with Jews as such, and
you're not allowed to talk about that stuff.
Jewish
You gotta watch your
nationalism
mouth.
and Jewish identity. So to try to shoehorn it in and say, well, if anybody goes further than this very narrow critique of Israel, well, they're actually helping Israel. I don't agree with that. I think we have to unpack the whole conversation.
Well, do you care a lot about Palestinians?
Yeah, there are pros and cons.
Not more than I care about anybody else.
So I guess that would be why that they would be like, okay, you're just taking advantage of this discourse.
I don't think it's taking advantage. I think that we can sympathize with the Palestinians while also realizing that, look, I'm an American. And so it's a tragedy what's happening in Palestine, but there's tragedies happening all over the world. My problem is that Israel has this influence over our government.
I'm a newcomer to politics.
There you go.
But not to backing the Jewish state.
And we're paying for the genocide, and we're furnishing them with the weapons to commit the genocide. And by the way,
Yeah, it's Section 219 in the NDAA. They're trying to push that will change the aid that the United States gives Israel. It will turn it into a partnership, so that Israel and Bibi can go around saying, we don't receive aid from the United States. We're a partnership.
America is going to be held liable for this
Covered
genocide.
on the channel if you want to check it out.
But
It's our
also
last
politically
video.
and diplomatically and otherwise. But I think that people on the left, they may be guilty of maybe caring more about Palestine than they do about America.
Nick, but the left didn't cancel you. The
Not
right
the whole-
canceled
not-
you
not
first.
all of people
the
on the
right
left.
canceled you first, and Ben Shapiro and the Daily Wire, and that was those.
Right. Is that really the right, though? Or is that like AIPAC or Zionists?
Those were the people that canceled. They may have utilized the tools of the left, or what you call the left, to be able to do that, but it was the right that canceled you. And by the way, what I would consider a radical right. The Daily Wire, to me, is a radical right.
I don't think they're even reactionary. I don't think they're that conservative at all. Ben Shapiro, I mean, he's not like he's in favor of mass migration.
In 2016, they were alt-right.
No, they were not.
Ben Shapiro and the Daily Wire.
Yeah, to a leftist, Ben Shapiro is alt-right. To someone that's conservative, he's like mainstream, I guess.
They were to the right of Mitt Romney.
Yes.
You know what I mean? That's what I mean. And that's
they
what
weren't
I'm
Mormon
saying.
conservatives.
Yeah.
It's
My
conversation.
point is, that's who you were canceled by.
I was also canceled by the left.
No, I know. They came along. They came along because some of the more egregious things that you said is edgelording. They came along. And whether you call it canceling or saying, like, what the fuck? This is what I call it. What the fuck? like, like, what the fuck? And so, like, I don't find it funny. And just like you're able to say, well, I just think it's funny, I'm able to say, I don't find it fucking funny. I didn't find it funny then. I don't find it funny now. I didn't find it funny that some of the things that, you said about me. But I'm willing to sit here and listen to you because I want to get to this. And this is my whole point. What about fucking Donald Trump?
Yeah, we can get to that. Yeah,
How did you get?
Yeah, sure, let's get to it.
Of all the people in the world, but you could look at and say he doesn't believe anything.
So for context for the viewer, Donald Trump is currently the sitting president of the U.S. For our audience abroad.
Oh,
the war with Iran was supposed to be over. Now we're back in business, baby. Khomeini had
It's on again, off again.
a pretty sick funeral if you saw the video. So you guys don't like Trump. You used to like him.
I did.
You've always hated him. He's tried to destroy your life.
Yeah.
You guys were cool. You guys hung out once at Mar-a-Lago.
No shit. Hunter Biden doesn't like Donald Trump? Wow. No shit.
With Kanye. You've never hung out with Trump, right? Would you want to?
No.
Trump
No,
can't
do
hang
I
out
want
with
to?
him.
Yeah, I did.
Okay.
Look, man, I would like. Can we get him? Can we get him in the motel room?
So I want you to imagine.
Let's get him in the
I want you to
motel.
imagine he's in the motel with us.
Yeah.
That's Trump. What do you want to? How about what do you want to ask him?
Oh,
All right. We'll give one hot take here. If if I could ask Donald Trump any question, it would be, why are you doing all this shit for Israel? Why are you fighting Israel's wars? Are you being threatened? Are you being blackmailed? Are you trying to do favors for when you are out of office or for your family? I would ask him something like that.
Put me on the spot. I don't want to ask Donald Trump anything because I know.
I don't want to ask him
and
anything.
I think you would agree with me, is that Donald Trump isn't going to give me an authentic answer. Donald Trump never gives an authentic answer.
Yeah.
He gives what people refer to as being authentic, but it's not authentic, it's audacious. It's like the example that I give that is the best metaphor for this is that he says he's 6'3", weighs 225 pounds. And everybody laughs because that's a little bit like edgelording, right? Everybody knows that he is maybe 6 feet and weighs maybe 300.
Yeah, he's probably 6'1", 6 foot, 230, 40 pounds is my opinion.
And 285?
He's a big guy. He's a pretty
I don't
big guy.
think he's 285. He's not
by
that
virtue
big.
of every picture ever
260 maybe, actually. He's not 6'3", though.
taken of anyone that's 6'3", he's not 6'3".
I am.
Okay? Yeah, I know you are.
Thank you.
You're 6'2.5", maybe. That's maybe. But my point is that the reason I don't have a question for him is because I'm absolutely certain that he is not going to give me an authentic answer. Look.
Well, not in an interview, but if you, I don't know, you had him in like a private room or something, I think that he would, depending on the person. But Hunter Biden is right. In this interview, yeah, Trump's just going to say whatever the best answer is.
He came into the Oval Office and the transition this time. And he told my dad that he thought that he did an amazing job. He did an amazing job with the economy. He did an amazing job that with NATO. He did an amazing job and that he got a raw deal from his side and anything he could do, particularly for Hunter. Hunter got screwed. Whatever I could do, you let me know.
He just said whatever.
He then went out and he has now since then done nothing but blame Joe Biden for every single one of his problems.
11 months ago.
Yeah, and I do agree. Joe Biden was pretty terrible.
I inherited a mess. Joe Biden handed us over a country that was in very serious trouble. Biden gave us a horrible economy. And I really mean this. I think the good parts are the Trump economy and the bad parts are the Biden economy.
He mentioned my dad's name or my family's name 6 times a day in the first 100 days of this administration.
Yeah. Yeah, he did.
6 times a day. He does it maybe 4 times a day now because he has no answers. All he has is a finger to point. And that's all he does. My point is, I don't know.
Well, I think the way, I mean, I can't speak for Trump, obviously, but I think the way Trump sees it is like during COVID, when everyone got shipped a mail-in ballot, he really feels like he got gypped out of his second term, like back to back. And so when he got back in office, he did not hold back at all. And especially after all the unprecedented things that the Biden administration did, like shipping out $90 billion before Trump got inaugurated through the Department of Energy, because, Biden wanted to promote like green energy thingamabobs. And so they were sending money to like unvetted green energy companies because they knew when Trump got back in office, he would cancel all of that. And then we also have the preemptive pardons. Specifically, we're looking at one right now. Hunter Biden got a preemptive pardon. He was never charged with a crime, but his daddy pardoned him before he left office. And so for Trump to come back in office after all those things happened and not to hold back, and now you see Hunter Biden complaining about that, is completely ridiculous. And that will be an L for him.
Why are you such a dick?
What does your dad think about the war?
Right.
And then to even talk about all the trumped up charges that he got placed, like it was like multiple misdemeanors by I believe it was the New York City like DA. They upped them to like felonies. Something to do with I actually forget. There were so many lawsuits with Trump. Like people try to say like Trump is politicizing like lawfare or whatever. He's using the judges to go after his political opponents. But in reality, there were so many cases against him that it's just completely backwards.
I'm not going to get into what my dad thinks about the war. Is it really, because
I don't think you could get an opinion out of your dad. He's too old.
I don't want to get into, I don't put words in my dad's mouth, just like I wouldn't ask you what your dad thinks about the war, but your dad wasn't the president of the United States.
Yeah, it's a little different.
I don't even know if you know what's going on. It's Eagles fan.
Look, all I can say is this, is that every single Israeli prime minister since at least Jimmy Carter was president, has walked into the Oval Office or picked up the phone and called the president and said, we have to attack Iran. And every single one of them has said no. And they may not all have had the same exact reason, but one of the reasons they did is because they knew what the consequences would be as it relates to the lifeblood of the economy, is petroleum in the Straits of Hormuz. Every single one of them knew that. And every single one of them
I agree. Channel 5 has been doing content with Hunter Biden for over a year now. It's actually like I do believe like Andrew Callahan just knows that if he has Hunter Biden on his YouTube, like he'll get more views. So that's kind of what I think is happening.
That there is no way, unless you send in ground forces, to end with certainty the nuclear program that the Iranians have supposedly been building. Every single one of them knew that the existing Ayatollah, the Ayatollah at that time, had put out a fatwa, an edict saying that they would never turn their nuclear technology into a bomb.
The supreme leader of Iran issued fatwa. Having nuclear weapons is forbidden, is haram, which means never we can have nuclear weapons.
Yeah, and that changes now because the Ayatollah got taken out, and if he had a nuke, maybe he would be alive. So I do believe because of this war in Iran that Iran is going to pursue a nuclear weapon, and so, you know, maybe attacking them wasn't the best choice.
It was a religious edict as strong as if the Pope had released an encyclical. But what did he do? He kills the Ayatollah. We get a son that now has a far more radical and far greater ties to the IRGC. And what do we have? The Straits of Hormuz are still closed. He said that they're brilliant people. I find that that's Donald Trump on everything. He said he'd end the war in Ukraine on day one.
That is a war that's dying to be settled.
He could have ended the war. So this is a hot take, and I don't necessarily agree with it. But here is one way you can end the war in Ukraine. Stop funding Ukraine. That will end the war pretty quickly.
I will get it settled before I even become president.
And I didn't hear anybody on the right and say, that's just bullshit. It's just bullshit. He said that he would build a wall. I don't believe in building a wall, but everybody said that's bullshit. And then when he got into office, the corruption, the level of the corruption, I mean, people believed or led to believe that there was this thing called the Biden crime family, right? I know that you know is that I didn't do a single piece of business when my dad was president. I made basically $200,000 a year selling paintings. I picked the thing that was the first.
That seems pretty privileged to me. I wish I could make $200K selling paintings. But my daddy's not the president, so it's kind of like it's not the best argument there.
Furthest possible thing away from politics that I possibly could. Don and Eric have done over $1.3 billion in contracts, just in contracts.
That is another thing. Yeah, I totally agree with that.
Contracts for underlying companies that they have an ownership stake in with the
pure
Department
corruption.
of Defense.
And you do see it on both sides, just like how Hunter Biden was making hundreds of thousands of dollars as a former crack addict / pedo, selling paintings when his dad was the president, and got a preemptive pardon. And it's like he's trying to make the case that Don Jr. is, you know, complicit in corruption. And it's like, bro, what do you call yourself then?
Jr. got the largest loan ever given by the Department of Defense of a company that he bought into like 3 months before they got the loan. Because Peter Navarro picked up the phone and called DOD to get it done. My point is, I don't have anything productive to say to him that I know of. And when I listen to you, and I listen to what you do, my question is how did you not see that before? He was a disaster in 2020, a complete and utter disaster as it related to what he did with COVID, regardless of whether you think we were wearing a mask or not.
Mm-hmm. The question for Nick is
the way I kind of see it is I truly believe Trump is better than if Kamala was the president. I truly do believe that. And those were the options.
Did you not realize 6 years ago that Trump would be this sort of letdown?
Because he doesn't hold, you know.
And I'd agree.
There's no ideological core to Donald Trump.
No, I agree with you. Well, you got to realize in 2016 where Republicans were at. We had John McCain, we had Mitt Romney, and the perception on the right is that they were insufficiently conservative and that they were losers. All they do is lose because they don't fight. There was this perception that the Democrats are ruthless, fighters. Obama crushed in 2008, crushed when we thought he really should have lost in 2012. That was a Republican perception that Romney let us down. And so when Trump came on the scene in
Romney
2016,
was a bad candidate.
It was new, it was refreshing. He seemed like somebody that was really going to take on not just the Democrats, but also the media on our behalf. And what's more, you got to think about the mood of the moment in 16 as well and the message Trump was giving. Trump said in 16, it's just me and my son and my wife. We don't have any donors. We don't have any special interests.
More than $100 million put in of my money, meaning I'm not taking all of this big money from all of these different corporations like she's doing.
We're going to put America first, make the country great again.
Yeah, and that
this was a very appealing message. And I talk all the time on my show about it and realizing now that it was obviously a scam and now obviously unfulfilled completely. And you're right, Trump is non-ideological. The message was brilliant because it said, one, the system is broken. America's not great anymore, but it used to be. We can make it great again, but in order to do it, we need to actually bypass the system. Why is it that we never have victories? Why is it that things don't change? Because of money. He said, and that's why I'm different. I'm rich. I'm a billionaire. If I self-fund my campaign and don't take super PAC money, then I won't have to listen to the lobbyists and the special interests. I could fire the people.
Yeah, but then after all the lawsuits after his first term by like leftist leaning like judges or lawyers and all that stuff and DAs, he ran out of money. And so he had to take money from the lobbyists and the donors.
I need to fire, do the things I need to do. That was like a very powerful message in 2016. And after 4 years, I was one of the people even back then that said, look, it never materialized. He did wind up taking super PAC money. He took AIPAC money for that matter. Sheldon Adelson money at that time in 16. Even in the first term, bombed Iran. In the first term, didn't build the wall. In the first term, didn't even reduce illegal immigration until 2019. And I remember the timeline perfectly because I covered it every day. It was like in May and June 2019, 20-year illegal immigration high in terms of month over month. But why did I go for him in 2020 at the height of the pandemic? We all thought on the...
He didn't vote for him, though, in 2020. Oh, actually, he might have, but not in 2024. That's my bad.
Right, that if anyone other than Trump was president, you were going to get a vaccine mandate, which we really didn't want to be forced to take the vaccine. We thought the lockdown might never end. We thought that censorship would kick into overdrive. And so we said, really, it's unacceptable that anyone other than Trump would just be a disaster. And then obviously Biden came in, and I don't think it was as bad as we thought it would be, to tell you the truth, honestly. But by 2024, I mean, I was out. In 2024, because everything you're saying is totally true. And I was telling people on my side, I was saying he's not going to build the wall. And I know you're against that. He's not going to do the mass deportations.
Nope.
Promising that. He's not going to start no new wars. I said in 24, he's going to take us to war in Iran. And the Ukraine war, I said, that's not going to end.
I do personally believe, though, that he might have started a war, but I do think so far, like less Americans have died under Trump than how many Americans would have died if another candidate got into office. I do believe that.
In one day, too complicated. We're already in it. And so I didn't vote. I didn't vote in 2024. And I told my followers not to vote for Trump for that reason. And it was only until a year later, after all the exuberance died down and people saw the bearing of the Epstein files, the war in Iran, people said, you know what? You were right. You were right about Trump. Even Alex Jones told me, you were right about Trump. I was all in on him. So, I mean, as far as him being vaporware is concerned and a scammer, and fundamentally, you're 100% right, no ideological core. He's not an ideological guy.
Well,
yeah, it is.
It's
He's
literally all about him.
And I agree.
We've known that since before his first term.
He's a cruel narcissist.
Yeah.
And you said, I like the cruelty. I do not
No,
like the cruelty.
no, by the way, no. I didn't say you like the cruelty. I said I'm listening to your thing, and you said one of the things that you liked about Levin was the cruelty. And not for the cruelty's sake, it didn't seem to me like this, is because it was raw. It
Dazzling,
was,
yeah.
yeah.
That's how you get viewers.
I'm not saying that.
No, but I agree. I think he is cruel. And even what he said on Easter. I mean, we're Catholic. On Easter Sunday, he says we're going to annihilate Iran, and then he made fun of Allah on Easter Sunday. So,
people were
that kind of stuff, it just totally turned me off entirely.
Is there anything that you think Trump can do to like regain the support of the, I guess, Gen Z and millennial right?
No, it's over.
I think he could fix everything right now if he wanted to, but he's not going to do anything.
People see what he's made of. And Hunter's right. He's a liar. He is a liar. He is a bullshit artist.
Sure.
And especially, you look at what he did with the Epstein files, with the war in Iran, what he did to Thomas Massie.
This guy named Thomas Massie.
Thomas Massie.
They just vote no.
There's something wrong with them.
They think it's good politically.
You realize that if you are America first, you have no place in this Republican Party, because he said it. He said our Republican Party, or rather, he said MAGA is Mark Levin, Laura Loomer, Randy Fine. He said,
yeah, that's crazy.
And who is not MAGA? Megyn Kelly, Tucker, Alex Jones, Candace. And I think most Republicans said, well, we're with those other people. We're not MAGA anymore.
Yeah,
so
I think happens, Nick. I believe that we need radical change. And I'm not talking about violence or revolution or things like that. I'm talking about the only ways that you can have this kind of radical rethinking of the system. Like, there's so many questions. Like, what do you think about the Epstein files? What do you think about the accountability?
Personally, I think with the Epstein files, I don't think any other president would have released as many as Trump has released. So, like, I know for a fact Trump didn't handle the Epstein files properly, but I do think he handled them better than anyone else would have handled them. Any other president, you wouldn't have seen a single file.
Do you think that he's broken the system to the degree that we now are basically in a dictatorship light?
No, I have a lot of confidence only because I think the Democrats are going to take the House in 26, which I support. I'm telling my people, vote Democrat. We want the Democrats in the House, because what they're going to do is they're going to use the oversight powers to bring all the corruption to light. Because I know Republicans will watch this, and when you say, we didn't commit crime, they're going to be skeptical. However, for the sake of argument, let's say the income you made during Biden was ill-gotten. For the sake of example, it's just doesn't hold a candle. It doesn't even come close, doesn't even touch Jared Kushner, Howard Lutnick, Steve Witkoff, Don Jr.
Yeah, Howard Lutnick should be in jail right now.
Trump himself. It's just a different sport. It's a different game entirely. And I want all that corruption to be revealed. And I think the Democrats are going to do it. I hope they get impeached. I don't think they'll be removed from office, but I think it'll basically drag this administration to a halt. And then in 28, I think there's an opportunity for a clean reset with both sides, right and left.
Hey guys.
That's a pretty hot take. Can't say I disagree with it.
Quick thing before we get back to Hunter and Nick. So these two guys individually have been hammered on all sides.
All right, so we got an ad out of respect for Channel 5 for doing this interview. We are going to play the ad, but I'm going to go AFK, so I'll be back when it's done.
By the American media for years. And if you want to understand why the coverage looks the way it does historically, you got to ask an important question that nobody asks. Who owns the outlets doing the hammering? Who's doing the hammering? Who funds them? Who's on the board of directors? Once you trace the money, the whole two-party culture war thing starts looking a lot less like a real fight and a lot more like a business model, and a very effective one. And Ground News is how I see right through it. So Ground News is the dopest news aggregate out there, app and website as well. Beyond the ownership piece, every outlet gets a bias rating and a factuality score. And there's a blind spot feature that catches stories that one side is hammering while the other side is completely ignoring, which happens more than you'd believe. Here's a perfect example. So my man, Big Hunter Biden, Big HB, just won a $1.7 million defamation suit against ex-Overstock CEO Patrick Byrne, who lied and claimed that Hunter took an $800 million bribe from the Iranians. Pull it up in Ground News. So the WLT report on the far right, the sister site of WeLoveTrump.com, spent 4 years shitting on my boy Hunter. But today, the headline reads, Hunter scores stunning $1.7 million court victory. Wow, stunning. Now on the left, Raw Story says, Hunter gets last laugh after judge orders MAGA millionaire to fork over nearly $2 million. So on this story, as you can see, left, right, everyone converges. That's the ownership beat right there. WLT Report is a Trump-loyal outlet, and even they had to run the wind straight. That's the ownership beat right there. And when you can actually see the ownership inside of Ground News, you can really trust exactly what you're reading. Look, I don't do much news commentary. I do documentaries, but before I sit down with two guys who've been extensively attacked by the press for years, I gotta know where the coverage of them is actually coming from before I ask my questions. And Ground News is exactly how I do it. If you want to be just like me and join the GNC5 family, go to ground.news/channel 5 or scan the QR code on screen. You'll get 40% off the Vantage plan, the illest plan on the dopest app in human history. Break out of the algorithm. Ground News. All right, back to Hunter and Nick. Whenever you talk about Trump, sometimes you explain this nightmare scenario that revolves around a Vance presidency.
Yes.
What about J.D. Vance being in power scares you so much?
If
They're going to get into the Peter Thiel stuff.
Trump doesn't have an ideological core, then Vance really doesn't, because Vance is a chameleon. That's not his real name for openers. Never had a real job. These are all sinecures given to him by Peter Thiel. 6 years ago, he's a never Trumper.
I'm a never Trump guy. I never liked him. I think that he's leading people in a very dark direction, and that's ultimately what worries me the most.
Terrible candidate. Idiot if you voted for him. Might be America's Hitler.
I was wrong about Donald Trump.
Personally, I don't see J.D. Vance as a leader. I do see him, like, he's solid as a VP, but I don't see him as someone that could run the country.
I didn't think he was going to be a good president, Brett. He was a great president.
Now he's a national conservative, national populist. And so we don't even really know who he is. Populist. I mean, to me, this is basically a Manchurian candidate. This is a shell. And who is the power behind
it? It reminds me of the governor of Minnesota, who was Kamala's VP pick, Tim Walz. Just a shell, a yes man, a guy who's going to support the president.
Tim, it's the oligarchs. It's the little tech oligarchs in bed with the CIA, you know, especially at this fever pitch with AI. I think that's really dangerous. So to me, him being president is just a worse scenario in my mind.
For the uninformed viewer, what is the Palantir-J.D. Vance connection?
Well, Palantir was founded by Peter Thiel, and Peter Thiel's very close with David Sachs. J.D. Vance was given his first job in Silicon Valley by Thiel. Thiel hooked him up with it. You know, the CEO of that company said it was a personal favor to Thiel that I hired him. And then Thiel got him all his jobs at these various venture capital firms, including his own, and then funding J.D. Vance's venture capital firm. Peter Thiel gave $15 million to Vance when he ran for Senate in Ohio in 2022. Peter Thiel secured President Trump's endorsement for him in 22, which basically got him the nomination and the seat. So, I mean, as far as anybody's concerned, Vance owes his entire political career to Peter Thiel, who derives his fortune from Palantir.
And now he's a Catholic like you and me.
Well, he's a convert, so, you know.
Beware the convert.
So do you think that Trump's unfulfillment of his campaign promises was a result of him being, like, compromised by somebody connected to that structure, or do you think he always just never cared?
Maybe not connected to the Palantir structure, but yes, compromised for sure.
I don't know that he never cared. I just think that, you know, I'm an idealist. So I think about the ideas and the concepts. Trump is a businessman. And so I think with him, everything's transactional. And I said this in 2024. Trump knew the voters would swallow anything. The voters would not walk away from the table because they were enamored with him.
I could stand in the middle of Fifth Avenue and shoot somebody and I wouldn't lose any voters, okay? It's like incredible.
So he knew
he could
break every promise with them in order to fulfill promises for the donor class, which is little tech, the Israel lobby, and Wall Street. The bankers, Tim Mellon, you know, the big asset managers. So I think with him, everything's business, everything's a transaction. And that's why you can't trust him. You have to do business. And in 24, I said we should all collectively say we're not going to vote unless he makes certain commitments. And not enough people did that. But I mean, that's fundamentally his flaw.
Your critique of this, like, elite power structure sounds like vaguely anti-capitalist.
It's not anti-capitalist.
It's anti-corruption.
You know, capitalism says the capital, large amounts of capital will be held in private hands, which I believe in. I am a capitalist. But I think what is happening is that it's the way that money is used in government. There needs to be a distinct and separate national power that subordinates the money power to it. The problem is the billionaires buy all the elections, buy all the media, control public perception. And so really we're all subsidiary then to the market. So I support capitalism, but it just has to be underneath the nation, underneath the state.
It seems like you have a pretty optimistic perspective on the year 2028.
Well, he's going to get a third term. So Trump 28, Trump is going to be president 28.
Kind of keep coming back to this like clean election year. Do you think that's going to be like a renaissance year for outsider candidates and outside media channels? Like,
I don't think it will be, but I hope it is. But it's not going to be.
This one?
It can be. I think it certainly can be, because I think there's frustration on the right and on the left. You know, you see even in the primaries on the Democrat side, it's all DSA progressive types that are winning. You ironically have the same frustration on the left with their establishment as we have on the right. And so I think, you know, in 2028, it's going to be a year where there'll be a competitive Republican primary and Democratic primary, and hopefully the people make their voice heard and we get some new options.
Yeah,
you know, maybe that reflect the will of the people more.
Yeah. And so, what do you think about somebody like Mamdani?
Personally, I don't like him. I don't like some of the things that he said, like, for example, on 4th of July, when he takes the opportunity to sit there with, let's be honest, not a single white person in the room, and says, you know, the founding fathers would look down on us, the working people with their dirt-streaked hands against the billionaires. I think it's a little too divisive. I like his energy. I like that he's young. It's ironic. Yeah, okay, fair enough.
That's rich, buddy. But no, look,
but no, it's not rich, because Nick Fuentes is just an influencer. He's not a mayor. It's a lot different.
It seems pointed at me.
I know, but yeah, but the thing.
He was dissing you in that video?
Yeah, a little bit.
Staring down the camera, like, just for you, Nick, you son of a bitch.
People like
you son of a bitch.
But what I see is somebody is using government for exactly the purpose that you just said, is to break the oligopoly, to target the anger towards a tiny, tiny, tiny percentage of the population that has controlled the levers of government, from the White House down to the mayor's office in New York City or Peoria, Illinois, to that matter, and even more so as you go further down that chain. And so,
yeah, I
look at somebody like Mamdani, and regardless of his delivery, which may be off-putting, particularly from somebody coming from your side, is that he's delivering, man. You know
he's
what?
not.
I mean, he's really delivering. You know, like,
if you want to check out Mamdani's failed campaign promises, check out the channel. We've covered them, and we also have a new one where he says he's not going to arrest Bibi when he comes to the UN in New York City. That was a campaign promise that he made, that he would arrest him. So there's even one more that we haven't covered. You know, there's kind of a lot of failed campaign promises on Mamdani's part.
I saw somebody going after Mamdani for some of this stuff, and particularly about rent control. You know, and I was like, well, how do you think the middle class was built after World War II in the GI Bill, and rent-controlled buildings that created those communities that we were talking about an hour ago?
Yeah, I would argue back in the day, you could actually work a minimum wage job and afford a house. It is completely impossible nowadays.
The GI Bill provides returning soldiers and veterans a range of benefits, including mortgages to purchase homes, loans to go to school, and this really was instrumental in creating the new American middle class.
Created the availability for somebody that was 20.
So I kind of think they're making an argument on like a false pretense here, in the fact that Channel 5, Andrew Callahan, did use those videos, is going to be a loss here, because the government, like the military, still does those kind of things these days. Like, if you join the military, you get free education and stuff like that. So that never went away. That didn't change.
6 years old that had a job with the MTA to be able to live and work in the city and put the kid in a school with the idea that they would be safe walking there, and go to a park that, you know, where the water fountains worked. That's what I see him trying to do. I mean, by the way, it's just so tired and
personally, I don't see him trying to do that with soft on crime policies. I mean, if you're not fully funding the NYPD, like your kid's not going to be able to walk to the fucking park. I don't know what he's talking about. It seems like a hot take from someone who obviously doesn't live in New York City.
You know, he's a communist. Like, it's about the communists. Like, who even says that anymore? Nobody. Like, you know what? We're just 1981, and we're watching Rocky V and worried about the communists. You know what I mean? I just don't. I don't get it. Rocky IV. My whole Philly legitimacy was just blown right there. Yeah. But it's just kind of, and so I look at somebody like Mamdani, I think, well, he's just talking about good government. Like, what do you think about healthcare? Don't you think that there should be a single-payer system? Don't you think that there should be some guarantee as a right? Because I don't know how you make it.
Yeah, it's funny because Hunter Biden's saying, shouldn't healthcare be a human right or whatever? You should have free healthcare. Like, why didn't Obama or Biden get that done? I mean, come on, man.
In this country and aspire to a middle-class life and be able to afford a, catastrophic event as it relates to your health. I mean, it's over. You're done.
Yeah. Like, I don't support single payer, but I do believe that everybody should be entitled to some minimum level of coverage, catastrophic insurance. So, in principle, I agree.
Which is Medicare for all to a certain degree, right? I mean, because that's all the Medicare for.
Yeah, we could have free healthcare for every American if people would stop trying to abuse and defraud the Medicare and Medicaid systems.
Does right now.
Too many grifters.
But why is that radical?
You can't do it right now.
See, I don't think that's necessarily radical, but
to them it's because we've been convinced that it's a radical.
Them,
yeah,
those others.
Yeah, no, them. I mean the insurance companies.
Sure.
And their lobbyists who control 55% of Congress, regardless of who's in power.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and I don't think that's necessarily the most radical. I think, though, he is with the DSA, the Democratic Socialists of America. He backs all these DSA candidates. And let's be honest, a lot of them are radical. Like, I saw one of these candidates that just won in New York a couple weeks ago, this Chevalier candidate. There's a picture.
She hates my dad.
Yeah, I know.
She said about my dad.
She had awful things about him.
Yeah,
and she says, oh, I didn't have a napkin to wipe my hands, so I used the American flag.
Yeah.
Oh, that's a fun
way,
one.
I think it's crazy, but like the same way that,
And it's like, you think that lady is going to get into office and she's going to try to make America a better place? Like, no. I truly think someone like that is going to try to destroy it.
I thought a lot of the stuff that some people that got elected in 2016, 2020, even during the Tea Party, kind of movement was, egregious.
That's before my time.
Egregious.
If it's a legitimate rape, the female body has ways to try to shut that whole thing down.
What is that about?
What do we do?
What?
I think a better question
I mean,
is,
for real, what do we do? Can you at least come a little bit to this way?
If you can come a little this way.
I'll say about Mamdani is he's a winner. That's what I'll say. He's got the great smile. He's got a great voice. He knows how to talk to the crowd. That's what I like about him. I don't like his socialist policies, but I will admit, when he speaks, it reminds me of like Obama or even Trump. So the things that he does is he wins. He wins elections. He gets things that he wants to get done, even though they're not things that like I agree with. Like getting a bailout from the state to correct your city budget. It's not what I would call a win, but that's what he wanted to do. He did get that done. So that's what's good about him.
And here's where I can come. Is this? Do you get what I'm saying?
Yes.
About the Holocaust thing?
Oh, about that.
Yeah. No, I mean really.
I do. And listen.
All right, I'm gonna also give another hot take. I think that before this interview, Hunter Biden's Jewish wife said, "Hey, if you love me, you need to make sure that you drill Nick Fuentes for being anti-Semitic." Because I don't know what's up with this. This is like they really haven't even like got into the JQ that much at all in this interview, but Hunter Biden keeps bringing it up.
Here's what I'll say. Now that I'm older, I do think that's not the best approach. So I agree with you on that. And I see it as I get older, because let's be honest, saying those things when I'm a younger guy, when I'm, 18, 20, it's
different.
like, you got to think that's just the age.
Jews are running society. Women need to shut the fuck up.
And that is how a lot of people talk nowadays.
Blacks need to be imprisoned for the most part.
And a lot of young people think that's funny and everything like that. I think
Right,
that it
right.
also goes with the medium as well. Live streaming, social media, that's just what it rewards.
how you get clicks.
So yeah, I think that people should try to move past some of that.
I'll try.
Sure.
But if you
I'll
you
try. If you try.
Yeah.
Okay.
Absolutely.
For real. And as it relates to when you talk about Israel, the Netanyahu, Likud government, what's happening now, what's happened for the past 20 years in terms of whether the funding to Israel, whether you think it is. It's really important that you make a distinction between that.
I don't know if you guys heard about Section 219 in the NDAA that's getting voted on in the Senate right now, but if it gets passed, our aid will technically not be aid to Israel. It will be a military partnership, not military aid. So that Bibi can go around saying, oh, we don't receive aid from the U.S. military. Like, we're a partner in their military.
And Jews. Because here's the thing, okay? Zoran Mamdani has a higher favorability rating in the United States among Jews than Bibi Netanyahu does. I think 65% of American Jews disagree with the approach that the Israeli government has right now. They don't disagree with you, but they completely turn off when they hear the conflation.
Yeah, that's the problem with people like Hunter Biden. They hear something that might come across as anti-Semitic and they say, oh, this Nick Fuentes guy just hates on all the Jews. And it's like, no. Nick Fuentes is like, he doesn't want like Zionist influence in the United States government. Big difference there.
Of Jews, Zionism, Israel.
And that's the same thing Mamdani wants.
And think automatically anti-Semitism, whether it's fair or not, okay? But you have to understand it. And you have to understand it from a cultural perspective in which the recent history is only one data point in 2,000 years of history as it relates to what it means to be a Jew, of which there is what, 1%, 0.5% of the entire world's population? Because I don't know what it adds to your
Yeah, that's a good point, Hunter. They are overrepresented in a lot of
or what it adds to your argument about Miriam Adelson being able to give $300 million to Donald Trump. And
yeah, and that's why Trump has been a cuck for Bibi, because of this donation right here. Because he got so many lawsuits after his first presidency by like left-wing politicians and left-wing like DAs that he spent all his money defending himself, that he had to take money from Miriam Alderson?
Commit Adelson, being able to give $300 million to Donald Trump and commit to give
it's like all these leftists run around saying, oh, Trump is co-opted by Israel, when it was all the stupid political lawsuits that caused him to need to take the money to do that in the first place. Like he had the money, if he didn't have to defend himself against bullshit charges, to not have to deal with this kind of influence. But he got all those like misdemeanors that were trumped up to like felonies and a bunch of other lawsuits, that he had to take this money if he wanted to become president again.
And then
it's
another
like,
$300
all right,
million
leftists,
to
you
get her
kinda
away,
did it to
and we end up in a
yourself.
war with Iran.
Yeah, well, and I think that's a valid point. I do think, though, that the issue's broader than just Netanyahu.
Oh, maybe, by the way, obviously Netanyahu has a base within Israel, within the Jewish community here in the United States, with Jared.
Yeah. And some people would call that treason. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying some people feel that way. Look at Thomas Massey.
Kushner, you know what I mean? Jared Kushner, who is unelected, not a member of our government, is having as more control over the direction of the everyday lives of American people right now than anybody that I know of. And meanwhile, all he's doing is building a $6 billion private equity fund with the people he is negotiating for.
Yeah,
I always say,
absolutely.
Look who's paying him, and wondering who.
That sounds like fraud to me.
Whose interest that he is advancing. He's getting paid by the Saudis, he's getting paid by the Emiratis, he's getting paid by the Qataris, he's getting paid. Go down the list. And
just go down
for
the
some
list.
reason, he is in control, along with Steve Witkoff, who is also not elected by anybody, of deciding whether or not the Straits of Hormuz are going to open up and whether or not our gas prices are going to go down. It may not matter to the three of us necessarily, you know, an extra dollar, 60 cents or 85 cents. But you know what? To 85% of the people that live in America, it means it's the difference between whether or not they're going to be able to pay rent. You know, whether or not you're going to be able to actually put the gas in your car in Montana to drive to your job on the, you know, on the ranch.
Well, and here's what I'll say to you, and this is something kind of why I want to do this interview, is emphasize the message that as far as Jews are concerned in general, I think that it's the same standard that applies to everybody, which is as long as you're patriotic, as long as you believe Americans should be put first by their government, I have no problem at all. And I think that everybody in the country should be treated with dignity and respect and have their civil rights. It's just this acute problem of these people, like you mentioned, like Larry Ellison and Miriam Adelson and Jared Kushner, they're putting some other country before the interest of our own. And that, in principle, is what I have a problem with.
There's going to be some people who watch this and feel like, all right, no take-backsies. And they might feel like you're just kind of trying to moderate, and that now that you've achieved your goal and got a lot of support, you're kind of moderating.
No, I agree that Nick Fuentes has been pretty spot on about that. He's like, we need to get Jewish influence or Israeli influence out of the Republican Party. Like, he's been saying that for years.
Because your
and
main
so for
aim has
Andrew
already
Callahan
been achieved,
to say
which
that,
is to sort of have a
it's kind of a bad take.
Generational run and pop off. So now you're trying to kind of make your way more into the mainstream discourse, but that you'll just go back again into the same sort of reactionary rhetoric once you're back in a #1 spot.
Well, I don't even think I'm moderating. And I even told our mutual friend,
I do think he is moderating specifically for this interview just a little bit, and only because it's on YouTube. He's banned from YouTube, and it's like a more of a leftist leaning channel. So he's kind of like moderating because of those factors.
It's not even a moderation. It's not even an apology. It's clarifying.
Definitely not an apology.
You know, all along I've been saying this message. It's just that the way that I'm saying it changes and evolves. And I also think how people respond to it changes as well. Because let's be honest, 10 years ago, there was a very different kind of conversation about Israel. You could not mention it in a negative or critical way without being utterly annihilated in politics.
Yeah, it was really after the war in Gaza that people started talking about it a lot more.
We all know that ever since October 7th, that's not the case anymore. So
October
I think
7th,
that there's sort of something reciprocal happening, which is that people are receiving me differently. And as someone that's growing older and more mature, I'm even representing myself differently. So I wouldn't even call it moderating, just clarifying. People are more receptive, and I'm maybe better able to articulate it.
And yeah, he's like translating from like an edgy streamer into like more of a mainstream conservative figure.
I think that's because you've kind of gotten older and been able to have like a longer career in media to reflect on your different changes in your perhaps brain chemistry and lifestyle.
That's a huge thing. I mean, I know it's 27. I have a very different mentality than I did when I was 20.
What's the kind of main difference, you think?
Just more even key.
Like his frontal lobe is fully developed now.
And I think you know too, it's like when you're 20, you're just like a maniac. And then you hit 25 and you're like, all right, you know.
I was a maniac when I was 49. My brain chemistry has definitely changed in the last 7 years too. You know, and I do believe that people can grow and they can change. And I'm not asking you to, and I'm not asking you to say things, but there are certain things that I just hope that you can hear without feeling attacked. That some of the things that you said, whether it's edgelording otherwise, are really hurtful. And then people completely turn off to the idea of being able to listen to you about anything. And then you get dug in more and you're like, go fuck yourself. Like, you know, you can't take a joke kind of thing. And that's not what it is. It's not just wokeism. It's not. It's people being...
Hunter Biden makes a good point there. The issue is he is compromised with this topic.
Really hurt by it.
Because of his wife's religion.
And
unfortunately,
I accept your apology for all of the mean things you said about me.
Yes.
Yeah, you know, I'm on my apology tour.
Yeah, he's on his apology tour, but realistically, if like the justice system was fair, he would be in jail right now, Hunter Biden, but he's not.
The one thing you did say, you said I was a degenerate crackhead.
Me?
And I have the problem with that, not you.
Not you.
I also said you were cool, though.
Yeah, no, by the way, you said I was a degenerate crackhead, and you know what? I'm not even mad about that, because I was a degenerate crackhead.
Yeah, that's just true.
I spent more time on my hands and knees smoking anything that even remotely resembled crack cocaine. It's true.
And now you're sober.
Yeah.
And I find it interesting. You also said that
Is he sober though?
You've never drank before.
Right. Yeah, I've never had a drink, never done drugs.
That's because you...
Yeah, it's funny. They're like comparing themselves as like two black horses, and you got one guy that says edgy stuff, never had a drink in his life. I believe Nick Fuentes is a virgin, you know, he's not married. He doesn't have any of these bad habits other than being very controversial with his words. And then on the other side, you have Hunter Biden, equivalent to the Epstein class if you checked out his laptop, and former drug addict. And the way he talks about crack makes me kind of believe like he might still dabble, but that's just an allegation. I don't know if that's true or not. And it's like, to compare these two they're not comparable. They're different.
Grew up, you know, with me. You're like, don't be that guy.
I grew up with you too, and I was doing.
Yeah. You're not as smart as he is. My brother never drank. My dad too. And
I was gonna ask you, Nick, what kind of prompted your choice to just like be sober for life and never drink?
Well, you know, a big part of it is I had a lot of addiction in my family. You know, my grandfather was an alcoholic, committed suicide.
Yikes.
Uncle died from an overdose from crack cocaine.
Yikes.
My mom, two of her uncles, heroin addicts for their entire lives. And it just devastated my family, devastated both of my parents. And
that's something new I didn't know about.
And so I know I have that addictive personality and probably have the genetics for it. And not only that, but I like being rational. I like having my sober mind. I think that's actually a sacred thing, to have unimpaired reason. So the thought of losing control and even being tempted to get into, you know, worse things, I just thought it's just not worth the risk. So it's just never for me.
well, how much, by the way, sorry, do we have time? Is it, how much do you think?
Yeah, the interview's getting to the end.
COVID.
About 10 more minutes.
Not just your generation, but everybody. Because
COVID fucked up this younger generation. So, anyone that had to go to online school for 2 years, like, cannot do math because they went and they did the online math and they didn't have to study. They just cheated on every test, and then they came out. These people, I'm not calling them stupid or anything, but the quality of education that these high schoolers got during COVID is much, much lower than the quality of education that like other people got when they had to go to in-person class and they couldn't cheat on all their tests, specifically math, because math is like really easy to cheat on if you take an online test, and it's very difficult to do if you have to like show your work in person. And so it dumbed down a lot of people. And then also, when you're not going to school every day, you're not seeing all your friends, you become like antisocial. Like you don't get that interaction that you need.
I have this theory that there was this thing that broke for us with COVID, and that nobody's really come to terms with how traumatic that was for everyone.
And especially for the younger generation.
Yeah, anyone that was in high school during COVID, I think it fucked them up the most.
I think severely less for the older generations, but for the younger people, missing the graduations, missing critical years in
you
school.
couldn't even walk during your graduation. Like that's crazy. There was no prom, there's no sports.
Well, that's when the socialization happens. That's when you learn to get along. And so
you
think
need
about how
that.
this generation is going to grow up having 2 to 3 lost years. No sports, no school, no extracurriculars, vacations. It's devastating. And we already had a problem with that isolation, social dislocation, loneliness. I can't even imagine. So it's going to be devastating, I think. But that's a lockdown.
So maybe if you're watching this video after this, put your phone or computer away, go outside, make a friend, just do anything but scroll to the next video. Back in the day during
If you could get one good message from this entire interview, I would say that's it. Try to be social, however you want to do it, but try to interact with people like physically, like face to face, rather than do it like on your phone. I feel like that really is the most important message with this interview. And that's what they're doing right here. You got Hunter Biden, who's someone that's on the left. You have Nick Fuentes, who's someone that's on the right. And they're just having a conversation.
Nickelodeon, they had Go Outside Day.
Oh yeah.
You know, I feel like we need like 1 day a week where it's mandated in a tech oligarch sense that no one can go on their phone or use the computer.
Man, I would love that. I mean, that's one thing. Is if we could, the one thing we could all agree on. The way I say it now is you're all carrying around a bag of heroin in your pocket. Everybody is, and it's probably even more dangerous in some ways.
Sure.
Would either of you guys ever run for office?
Are you asking me for real?
Yeah.
You asking me for
no.
real?
I think that politics, the way that my dad engaged in it, and that I'm obviously incredibly biased, is an incredibly noble thing.
You are incredibly biased.
That's not where my head is in terms of what I want to do. I want to reach. My whole thing is that forget all of this.
I don't know if I believe it. I feel like if Hunter Biden was given the opportunity, he would run for office.
I want to reach 1 million people in addiction. I think one of the biggest things about addiction, and one of the reasons why it continues to be this, epidemic, is that we don't talk about it. Is that you don't even talk about it around your dinner table, and what you realize, if you're coming from my particular unique situation, is that everybody comes to me and they tell me their story, and sharing that is like, breaks that cycle of shame. And so I want to reach 1 million people in addiction.
How about you, Nick? Would you ever run for office?
I don't think so, no. Just because you can't.
I don't believe that. I think he will at some point.
I don't think you can fully be authentic when you're running for office because it's a different role. And I think my role, they say, according to the Overton window idea.
Ideas that are inside the Overton window are ideas that are politically safe. The public is ready to accept them.
All right, if you don't know what the Overton window is, get off my channel.
First to the punch and maybe considered a bad person or evil or whatever in order to promote your view. And so that just doesn't lend itself to that kind of politics. So I think to protect my own integrity and authenticity of the message, I have to not run for office.
See what we just did?
Yeah, I mean, the explanation he gives is like with the current politics. In the future, it's going to change. I feel like he might change his mind.
Probably the entire audience happy. One half is glad I'm not running. The other half is really glad he's not running.
Well, if not you guys, then, is there any candidate or prospective candidate that you feel like could run in 2028 that would,
No, I feel like there is no candidates for 2028.
Have a fair shot that y'all support?
Nobody in particular for me. I haven't really been too impressed with who's come out of the Republican Party. So I'm hoping they'll just...
Well, even on the Democrat side, if there was a good Dem candidate, I would consider it. But it doesn't... the sides don't matter. There is no good candidate for 2028.
Be somebody we haven't heard of, somebody maybe that hasn't been in office before.
Yeah.
He's voting for Gavin Newsom in 20.
That's right.
No,
yeah.
not
well,
Gavin
if it's
Newsom.
Newsom and Vance, I'd certainly think about it.
Yeah.
That would be terrible if it was Newsom and Vance, and it probably will be.
How about you? Anybody that, creates a twinkle in your eye?
No, I think that there are a lot of people. I mean, I know that you think that you're going to laugh at me, but I personally like Gavin Newsom a lot. I think that he's authentic in those beliefs.
He's not authentic at all.
Whether you agree with them or not. Thomas Massey's principled stand is...
Thomas Massey would be a good candidate, but he's not popular enough to win in a presidential election.
It relates to the Epstein files. Was incredibly courageous.
Do not let the Senate muck this bill up. I am sorry if one of your billionaire donors is going to get embarrassed because he went to Rape Island.
Because he went to Rape Island. That's so funny.
That's why,
Thomas Massey is great,
really strong.
but he's small time, unfortunately. I don't think he's big enough to run for president.
Strong national candidate.
And you guys think America will exist in a post-Epstein capture freeway?
Will America exist?
Yeah, will America survive the current power structure's stranglehold on...
I do want to put a nomination out there. I personally feel like John Kennedy from Louisiana would probably do a really good job. He's kind of an underdog, just like Thomas Massey, but he's a little bit more mainstream with his beliefs, that he could fit that bill. I do think that he's pretty good.
The media, the political system, and all public affairs.
I don't know. I think AI is going to really be transformative. It's interesting.
Actually, I'm going to vote for the AI. Fuck a human president. Let's just get the AI in there.
Nobody seems to be talking about that.
Transformative in what sense? Like for
That's a
bad?
joke.
Concentration of power. That's the biggest, single biggest. And you know what? I'm actually on the liberal side on this with Anthropic over the, let's say, you know, because there's this battle between these effective altruists, effective accelerationists, and I really am nervous about what's going to happen, especially in the next 4 years, because they're racing towards this artificial general intelligence, artificial super intelligence, and that, without a doubt, is going to be the single biggest influence on the country, and so I'm really worried about that.
And what about that?
I wouldn't worry about it as much as, like, you have to think about it as like the .com bubble. So when the internet became mainstream, it did create a lot of new industry, and it helped a lot of people make more money faster, make new things faster. I truly believe AI will be the same thing. It'll make people more productive. I don't think it's going to be something you should worry about. I personally do think it's going to be a good thing for the most part. Obviously, you know, some things will fail, some things will succeed. We'll have to see how that plays out. But I do think AI overall for humanity will be a good thing.
Concerns you, is it surveillance?
It's the concentration of power in the hands of whoever controls it. Whichever firm is the one to develop ASI, that could confer dictatorial-like powers upon the CEO of that company. So whether that's Sam Altman or it's Dario, you know.
And that is the issue right there.
If the artificial intelligence is aligned with its creator, that person will become the most powerful person in the history of mankind on
It's
on
almost
that
an
day.
inherent truth, in my opinion, what he just said, is that the greatest leap in human evolution is going to happen within our lifetimes. AGI,
Yeah,
let alone,
but it's going to happen
you know,
again within your
superintelligence
lifetime.
is every.
In 30 years, there's going to be some new thing. It's not going to be AI. It's going to be something else.
Thing that we think about the way in which we exist in the world completely changes. And I don't think that that's in any way hyperbole. And if you listen to the people that are developing these technologies right now,
they all sound crazy. All the tech CEOs.
The most alarmist.
I think AI will probably, most likely, sort of lead to the end of the world.
If you want to know what life's like when you're not the apex intelligence, ask a chicken.
And now, by the way, I think that there's an enormous possibility for incredibly beneficial things to society, like being able to cure cancer. I just think of this one thing. Everything that AI is built on is ours. Belongs to you, and you, and you, all the way back through the human civilization. That's what they're stealing from us, and they're putting it into the hands of literally a handful of people. All of that human knowledge.
Yeah, the tech CEOs scare me more than AI does.
And I think that that's ours. So any AI that is developed, particularly that goes to HEE, it should be communal. It should be shared in the not just the benefits.
Is he advocating for like open source information? Because that's not what leftist politicians seem to do when they get into office. They seem to like suppress dissenting information, like other like conservative voices like Nick Fuentes will get debanked and deplatformed.
So offshoots of it, but the actual money of it should be shared.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. I think it's like nuclear bombs, but it's also a commodity at the same time. The weapons potential, the economic potential, I think that's going to be the biggest thing. And I hope on some level that liberals win that argument, because, you know, what Trump is doing with the Pentagon, Anthropic, and OpenAI, the way they're handling it is so reckless and sloppy and just honestly unbelievable. So we need some adults in the room on that one.
Well, it's been a great conversation. I appreciate you guys for coming. You guys have any final questions you want to ask to each other, or maybe a message you want to give to the American people?
I still believe in America, and I truly believe in these conversations.
The issue I have with him saying that I still believe in America is you got 3 straight white men telling you like how they feel. And for Hunter Biden to say, you know, I still believe in America. Well, there are a lot of people that aren't straight white men that want to believe in America. But when it's just these 3 talking heads telling you kind of what to think or what to believe in, it's not gonna vibe with them. They're not going to understand. They're not going to relate to what they're saying.
People,
I still believe in America, and I truly believe in these conversations. And I think everyone that's watching would think that I would not want to sit down with Nick and this, I guess, what I'm getting at with you is that I hope you see the humanity of me, and so when the way that you talk in the future takes that into consideration. And what I'll do is.
And I do have to say, I don't like how Hunter Biden this whole interview is trying to moderate Nick Fuentes. I truly believe like freedom of speech is like what makes this country great, and you should say like, hey, I'm a recovering crack addict who's Epstein class equivalent if you checked out the photos on my laptop. So I'm not going to tell you what you can say, because you should be allowed to say, for the most part, whatever you want, and that's not a crime.
I'll see the humanity in you.
Yeah, I agree. I think it was a great conversation.
It was a good conversation.
That, we have to come together on the things that we agree on, which is, for example, that we love the country. We both believe in America. We both want the country to succeed. And I like what you said, that we see the fundamental humanity in each other. And I think that, especially in the events of the last year, the killing of Charlie Kirk, you realize that's actually not something that people on both sides share. I think there's people on the right and the left that don't see the humanity in the other side. And so maybe that's the new consensus, or that's where we can come together.
I like that. I like what he's getting at. We're going to give him a win for that.
Is on the basis that, we disagree on fundamental issues, and even sometimes it gets heated and we yell at each other, but that we do ultimately want the best for each other. We love each other. We want the country to succeed. And I think that's a starting point for any solution.
That's a really good starting point.
All right, American
totally
brothers.
Agree.
Thank you guys so much for your time. I really appreciate it.
Thanks, buddy.
Good job, guys. After interviewing Hunter and Nick about a variety of contentious topics.
All right, so that's the interview. I really hope you liked it. I will say, like, I hope to see more content like this, where you have super conservative and super, I don't know, leftist people having a conversation. Because what happens when that doesn't happen is you have just people on the right going in an echo chamber, right? You have people on the left going in an echo chamber, going down an echo chamber, and to like cross paths with that, to have both of them talking to each other, it really includes like almost everyone. And I'm sure there were points made by at least someone in that interview that you relate with, you agree with, and you're not going to get that if you're just listening to a conservative influencer, or you're just listening to a liberal influencer. So I really think this kind of stuff is really, really, really good. And if there's more stuff like this that comes out, we'll definitely cover it on the channel. So subscribe so you can check it out. Once a week, we do one podcast episode. We usually live stream it on Wednesday or Thursday. It kind of depends. So check that out if you're interested. And then every once in a while, we'll do streams like this whenever there's a very hot topic, podcast, or interview. We'll react to it. So if you liked it, definitely subscribe.